Hello and welcome to the June 6th, 2025 edition of the AV Experience. Ryan will join us later. He's not available right now, but he'll be here before long, and I'm going to get us started. So tonight we're going to have another Q&A session. We'll go as long as we want, as long as we have something to talk about, as long as you guys have some questions, we'll go ahead and keep going. I saw some questions last week. I wasn't able to join. I tried to join from the car. It didn't work, but we're gonna maybe go over a couple of those questions that we had. And one of them that I want to start with that I thought was very interesting was Palindrome Guy. He said that he felt like there were actually, are we getting chats? Are you guys, are we live? Can you guys see the live stream? Let me make sure we're going live here. It didn't light up like I thought it would. Somebody comment in chat if you can see us or hear us. Well, I'm going to pretend we're live. Hopefully a chat will pop up there before long. Palindrome Guy asked, hey, in the Kansas City crawl, it looked like you guys had like $100,000 theater in every room. And I'm not sure that that's the case. I can see where that would appear that way. And also the question that bears out from that, like, what do you think you need to spend in order to have a competent home theater that would excite any enthusiast? And I think we can talk about some of that tonight. I think that'll be pretty fun. So Jeff, yeah, it's just me right now. Ryan's actually at the vet. One of his dogs has an issue, and so he will be here soon, hopefully, but he's not available right at this moment. So I'm going to kick off the discussion just on kind of follow up that question because I thought it was an interesting question and I missed it last time. I don't think that very many of the rooms are $100,000 actually out of the KC crawl when you actually add it up. Now, I will say that if you were going to buy all the stuff retail and you were going to buy it all at once, that there are several of the rooms that were approaching that price point. But I think several of the rooms, a couple of the rooms are probably in the $50,000 to $75,000 range if you were to buy it all brand new retail. And if you were to buy it used, like most of us or several of us on the crawl have done, it's probably half to 2/3 that. And it's not an all at once expense. So we've talked about that before on the podcast where really you're just buying a small portion in the sense that like some of us started this 20, 25 years ago. So we bought this stuff coming out of high school, going into college, coming out to our first job, and you kind of upgrade along the way. So anything that you buy, when you resell, you roll it into the next gear. So it's not like any of us had to come up with that kind of money just outright. Maybe one or two of us have done that out of the crawl, but the majority of the hosts were just kind of like working along the way and buying and reselling and kind of moving up through the course of the years. We can talk about how to accomplish that kind of thing, but it's really not like that number seems unobtainable. It seems kind of silly to me, even when we talk about it out loud, but it doesn't have to be all up front like that. It's just a love of the hobby that extends over a course of time. So, how much do I think you have to spend to get like a great system? I think my friend Tim is going to have an example of that. He's buying those QSC SR, I think they're 8200s. You can also get the SR 1030. Those are about $300 a speaker. And if you got, say, 13 of those or even just 11 of those, and those, $300 a piece, you're looking at $3,000 or $4,000 for that kind of setup. Get a Denon 6800 for a couple $1,000s. Get some do-it-yourself 18s and some iNukes for probably roughly $700 or $800 a subwoofer, and maybe you want 4 of those. At that point, you're just knocking on the door before you even do projector or anything. You're knocking on the door at 10 grand, and you've got an incredible setup that will rival your local premium home theater cinema, or your local commercial cinema, actually, I should say. So, that's reference capable volume. Those speakers are capable of like 121 dB peaks. So you're not going to have any problem driving them to reference at home. They're 94 dB sensitive. So you're talking about, easily 105 dB at the main listening position from any of the channels with just even like a competent AVR like the X6800 from Denon. And you're really getting a nice setup. I mean, you're going to have 4 18s. It will be a commercial theater experience. It will be something that would excite even a hardcore enthusiast, someone who's been in the hobby a long time. And you're probably looking at $20,000 by the time you buy seats and projector screen and projector. Maybe at that type of end, I'd recommend the JVC NZ500 and, $1,000 projector screen, a couple home theater seats from Nebraska Furniture Mart or something. You can get there for $20,000. You can even have some tactile transducers at that price and like some butt kickers and an amplifier for that and come in under $20,000. And I really think with some tuning and some care, that would be quite a fantastic system. So I'm not one that says you have to spend that kind of money to have something that would be impressive to anybody who was interested in coming to visit. I don't know. I haven't seen Palindrome Guy in the chat, but he can catch up in the future and see if he had any other questions from there. So I'm going to say hi to some people in the chat. We have some regulars in here. Jeff Fry, we visited with him at my place. Yep, some normal guys in here. Fenster, Anthony, Ryan B. Yep. All right. Well, thanks for joining, guys. I'm going to field some of your questions this evening until I'll talk to that Superfly. So I'll put this comment up here. I'll talk to that during this podcast, kind of just let it be free. So in this instance, I'm not probably going to do a full review of a comparison. I was going to do that, and we kind of shied away from it because Ryan and I figured that we only had reviewed it in this capacity in one room. And our goal was to do a second room and kind of see where the chips fell, and then maybe we'd have kind of an outcome from it. So what speaking back to that time, Ryan brought over a Storm 16 and a Trinoff 16, and maybe it was even a Storm 24. I'd have to go back and look. And we hooked them up, and we had John from Trinoff set it up and Matt from Storm set it up over the phone, like a remote viewing session through a remote connection, all that kind of stuff. It'd be the same thing like the white glove treatment you'd get as a customer to have the company set it up. And we set them up in my room here with I think we were doing 15 speakers at the time. Maybe it was just 13. And we had 4 subwoofers. We narrowed it down from 8 to 4. And we put the subs in pairs of 2 to make it kind of more relevant to like what most rooms would do. And the idea was just to kind of see like, all right, what's the customer experience if you have a room and you buy this piece of equipment, you have the company basically set it up or do a remote configuration. What's the user experience? How does it work? And so that was the goal. And we had our opinions that developed from that. We had about 3 guys. I think it was Bob and Ryan and I, and then it was later Tim and Sheldon and I. And we had some demo sessions in here. We compared. It wasn't immediate switching, but we could just switch the amps out. So, just switch the XLR cables and we could test both systems and kind of got a feel for it. There wasn't a unanimous decision on which one was the best. My preference was for the AV10 because I don't like a bunch of auto EQ. I think auto EQ actually, comparatively, in my opinion, does more damage than helps, especially if you're trying to cater to each seat. And I'll give you a very specific example about this. I think I've talked about this before in one of the podcasts, but I think it was with the Storm unit. The Storm unit, the way we had set it up was with very specific filters. Like it was tailored for the main listening position, and it wasn't like a large grouping or a big area of seating that we were accommodating for. So it applied very specific filters for the MLP. And while we were running that test, I think Ryan was sitting in the far right seat, so the farthest seat against the wall over there. And while we were running the test, when we started playing content, or even when we were doing sweeps, at one point Ryan said, "I think one of your speakers is blown, Jonathan." And I said, "No, one of my speakers isn't blown. These things are like 125 dB capable speakers. We weren't anywhere near that volume." What it turned out being was when I said, I'm sitting in the main listening position and I didn't hear that at all. So what it turned out being, I said, "Ryan, come over here and sit and I'll go over there and I'll see what we hear." The EQ had been tailored so specifically for the main listening position that a seat 2 feet to the right in that particular instance with this particular room, with my particular speakers, I can't say it's universally that way, but it made that speaker sound blown when we were listening to a sweep. So that's not very surprising when you learn how audio EQ works. If it has very specific granular filters that you're applying for one specific seat in a relatively small room, like if you were outside or you were in a giant cinema room, those real granular, specific, very steep type notch filters wouldn't hurt anything. But in a small room, they can make a big difference. So let's use Odyssey as an example, because Odyssey has done the same thing. It's not just Storm. I've had Odyssey make it sound where like I couldn't even understand dialogue in the Top Gun Maverick movie after I run Odyssey if I wasn't in the main listening position. So what happens is, like, let's use Odyssey example because I'm familiar with it. It can apply up to a 9 dB boost at different frequencies, wherever you want it to apply it or whatever it sees that it needs. Like, let's say it finds that at 483 hertz, I'm just making that up. At 483 hertz, it needs a boost. And it's going to say it can apply up to 9 dB. So let's say at that frequency, it applies a 9 dB boost for the main listening position to be flat. And if you're only tailoring for main listening position, let's say there's already a mode on the left front seat, which is here. That 483 hertz is already boosted there because of a room interaction. Well, now you applied 9 dB more, and that seat's just getting blown out at that frequency, and it sounds weird and messed up to that position's ears. So I've been a longtime advocate. This has been, I don't know, almost 10 years in the making, probably, where I think less EQ is more in the reality when you're trying to cater to a bunch of different seats and different positions in a small room. I think general EQ applied to a competent speaker to your own personal preference is more valuable than just a really strict granular EQ. So in the particular setup, and you can totally change all this stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. It was just the way it was run with the standard configuration. You could set it to account for more seats, for broader listening position, all that kind of stuff. But we were just doing that setup for the main listening position. It seemed like the storm in that little evaluation had more granular, more steep, more detailed, more finite filters than the Trinoff. And the Trinoff sounded better seat to seat. When you were in the main listening position, some of the guys thought the storm sounded better than the Trinoff because it was more specific. And when you were in other seats, people tend to think the Trinoff, at least in the way we had configured them, or that the company had configured them for my room, blind, remote, that the Trinoff might have been a little bit better seat to seat. But neither of them, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, it was also Tim and Sheldon who were over here, neither of them sounded as good as the AV10 with just no EQ and my manual EQ applied, which is nothing more than a smiley face. So we've talked about this before. I drop like the 2 kilohertz down about 2 dB, and I drop 1 kilohertz down about 1 dB, and I drop 4 kilohertz down about a half a dB, and by 8 it's back up to maybe a half or none. So I'm just putting a real small smiley face dip out of all speakers. Like, all speakers are treated the same. And if you have a competent speaker that has a broad dispersion pattern, like what you have on these CBTs that I have, then that's really all you need. I don't need that real granular EQ, because anything I make a change that's precision made for one seat will not apply to any other seat. So you're kind of just like giving an overall EQ, but not applying it to any specific seat. And it makes for a good experience, I think, when you're sitting in different seats. I think a better experience, and I think notably so, like provably so, observably so. So we have a family of 6. We oftentimes will fill up at least 4 of the seats, 5 of the seats. Sometimes the little kids sit together. But a lot of times I'll be sitting in the back row, and I want my back row experience to be as good as a front row, or as close to as I can be. So I don't want to cater for one seat like that. So even if I ran the Trinoff or the Storm, at that point I'm just going to do my own manual EQ, because for my seating, for my purposes and use case and my preferences, that's where I landed. Now, very specifically on the Storm, the things that I didn't like about the Storm and the Trinoff versus the AV10, the Storm did not have a good, I don't even know if it had any remote, but it didn't have a GUI overlay on the screen. The web interface was nice, but I personally don't want to be pulling up a web browser to look at a web interface whenever I want to change things or tinker with things. I like a physical remote. The Marantz physical remote is fantastic. The Turnoff remote, likewise, is just awful. It's like a 1980s button where the buttons are mushy and there's no tactile feel to it. And the on-screen GUI with the Turnoff was just awful. It also looked like 1980s. It only had a couple things that it would pull up on the UI. It had like a volume that was like just 2 digits and nothing special. It would tell you what I think input you were on and nothing else. Like, it had nothing else. The AV10 is like miles better for an on-screen interface than the Trinoff, and the Storm doesn't even have an on-screen interface. So I use the on-screen interface quite a bit. I like checking info. I like seeing what my speaker outlay is. I like the volume overlay GUI on the Marantz. Like, the little things kind of matter to me. I've also had just such a good, excellent track record with Denon and Marantz. I've had their products 20 years on and off. I've had switched between Onkyo and Denon and Marantz, and they've just been so darn solid that it's hard to like ignore the fact that they're just so reliable. So since I don't use the fancy EQ that those systems have, and I do my own EQ, and because the bells and whistles are better. I mean, like the physical in your hand touch of the AV10 is fantastic. It's got that carbon fiber look. It's got those little LEDs on the side. The knobs feel super smooth and nice. Um, it's got the porthole screen, which I care nothing about. That's kind of dumb to me. I wish it was like the larger LCD screen, but you just drop the front door and you have the nice LCD screen. The remote's nice. The unit feels real nice. The connectors on the back feel real nice. Like the Marantz and Storm are more like a kind of a computer, like a PC chassis to me. And that's because they're homegrown. They're like boutique, and that's really what they are. It's kind of a, like a computer chassis, a server chassis, but it doesn't have the same weight, feel, heft, look, quality feel to me. Like just the look and feel means something to me, even though it's in a rack and you don't look at it. Like there's a big difference there, and that's in favor of the Marantz. The connectors look better. It's all like bronzed out and coppered out, and gold connectors and everything. Like the Marantz, just if you're going to assign a look and feel property to it, it's much higher. The other thing that I didn't really like about the Trinoff, personally speaking, was at the time, and maybe they fix that. I think they want to fix it in the future, is that you would drop the first, let's say, 5 to 7 seconds of every track on the Trinoff when it was a Dolby Atmos track. And so when I'm listening to music, it's switching between stereo, it's switching between Dolby Atmos. I'm on Apple Music. I'm having fun just listening to things. It's switching back and forth. And anytime a Dolby Atmos track would come on, I would miss that first few seconds. And it didn't matter. You couldn't rewind it. You couldn't get it back. It was just gone. So I didn't know any better. I went on the Trinoff forums and I said, like, hey, there must be some setting I'm missing or something as far as why it's dropping the first few seconds of any audio. And I found out pretty quickly that that's like a known issue. I mean, I didn't know. I didn't have a Trinoff. It wasn't a ill-intended question. It's just the way it is with their clock syncing functionality. It has to drop those first few seconds to kind of calculate that. And I think that they're going to be trying to fix that, or they want to try to fix it. But so far, it's been around. I think it's been an issue for a lot of years. And to me, honestly, I mean, just laying it out there as I've been doing so far, that's like a deal breaker. I'm not going to buy a Halo product that makes me miss the first 5 to 7 seconds of any Dolby Atmos movie or any Dolby Atmos song. Not happening. I'm not doing that. That's a non-starter for me. Now, some people say they don't care, they don't listen to music, or if they listen to music, they don't care if they miss the first part of a trailer or whatever on it. Okay, fine. But that is a deal breaker for me personally. And Trinoff needs to fix that. And this is like a case of Emperor has no clothes, in my opinion. Like this should be screamed from the city walls to say, like, fix that. That's unacceptable. Like you can buy $100 Onkyo receiver from Walmart that won't do that. So what's going on here? Why do we have a 7-second cutout of any Dolby Atmos track? I mean, that may be harsh, but let's call it like it is. Like that doesn't make any sense to me. They have more filters. They probably have more capability on the Storm and the Trinoff both, as far as like Tinker's Paradise. But if you go to ASR, at the end of the day, ASR has better signal to noise ratio on the Marantz. So I don't give a whole lot of credence to that. If we're being real frank on that too, I think that's all well above human hearing, where the signal to noise ratio on these premium Halo products. We're talking like people probably actually can't hear in blind tests much above like 75 dB SYNAD. Just telling it like it is. I mean, Gene from Audioholic says the same thing. I think he even said low 70s, like 72 or 71. I have to go back and look at a review he did on Yamaha where he talked about SYNAD scores and what people can hear. I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt and say it's a little bit higher, but I do not think it's over 75 because we've done multiple blind tests with amps in the Kansas City group, and some of them have had that 75 dB range SYNAD score, and nobody can tell the difference on any of these amps. With fast switching, immediate switching, like on-off switching just with a switch, and like compared to a premium amp, like the best amp ASR I'd ever measured, we even tested one time. And so it had like 115 SYNAD, and one of the ones we were using was like a Crown that had like a 77. And a Behringer iNuke that had like a 75, and nobody could tell the difference when you're doing fast switching, level match, double blind. Actually, even nobody could tell the difference out of like 3 or 4 different of these amp meets between like a Halo amp that's like engineered to a T and like an off-the-shelf consumer thing that's available at Musician's Friend for cheap. Like we are long past the realm of being able to hear these scores that we're getting. Like the engineering's better than human ears at this point. Yeah, I mean so that's kind of it. Like the I don't have any real faults with the Trent Offer Storm. They're nice. They have all the extra channels. I mean, it's fun to have like all those channels and chase. But then even there, like my experience is once you get past a certain number of speakers, it's definitely diminishing returns. And in my experience, that number is not even as high as you might think. Like um, I mean, look around my room. I have 6 ceiling speakers, and you guys know who have watched the podcast regularly that I don't even have these 2 hooked up because they actually are detrimental to my soundstage in this room with this setup to have them engaged. So I'm actually only using 4 ceiling speakers. So in my room, I feel like 9 bed layer and 4 ceiling speakers is adequate, and I don't know what I would gain by having more because you would swear up and down that there's a speaker here and there's a speaker here and there's a speaker here, like because of the broad dispersion and whatnot. Like I don't feel any holes. There's a Genesis track called Animals or something like that on Dolby Atmos that has like a real slow, like creaking sound going around the room in a slow 360-degree range, and you'd never hear it move from speaker to speaker. It's just there, like it's just moving around the room. So diminishing returns, maybe there would be some minute to manage that I don't know since I don't have that many speakers. Like if I had 24 speakers or 32 speakers, but man, you're in the realm of diminishing returns. Okay, so I I I haven't been reading the comments. I've been just chatting with you guys. Let me kind of catch up on the comments. And I apologize if I offended anyone from Turn Off or Storm or anyone on the options here. I'm not saying they're bad products. I'm just saying the AB10 is such a solid product, and I feel like overall, like if regardless of price, I mean, it wasn't even a desire to me. Like in my opinion, in my room with my use cases, I would prefer the AB10. Like if they were all the same price and someone could say, "Hey, you can have any of these," the AB10 is the one I would pick. So that's me, Jonathan, speaking subjectively, my preferences, my experience on it. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of go through these questions. I might not know all the answers to these. If I don't, I'll just say I don't. So this first one, Ryan B says, "What do you use for TRS to RCA for a balanced mini DSP flex to an amp that only has RCA input?" So TRS to RCA for a balanced mini DSP. Let me look up the mini DSP flex. I'm surprised that doesn't just have standard RCAs because my mini DSP 2x4 just has standard RCA outputs. I want to see what's on the back of this. So yeah, those look like just RCA outputs. And you have RCA inputs. What am I missing here? Like the Flex that I'm looking at, Mini DSP Flex for $500 on Mini DSP sites, it just only has RCA and has a SPDIF and a Toshiba Toslink, but just RCAs. So Ryan, put a link in the chat or just guide me maybe to what you're talking about there as far as TRS, because I just see RCAs on those things. All right. Here's another comment. I have 2 PSAs X30s, sealed dual pose 15s each, running these near field. Think of adding 2 sealed, do-it-yourself 18 or 21s. Will the improvements blow me away? I should put my efforts elsewhere. So the PSA XS30 sealed dual opposed 15s each, running near field. Okay, dual opposed means you're only getting half that driver. The 15 is firing to the back. Honestly, I think 15s are totally fine for near field. I've experienced them. I think 15s are fine. I think 12s are pushing it. I think 10s are too small. 18s, 21s, 24s, 32, 50s, as Ryan, has played with. All of them get better as they get bigger. The cone doesn't have to move as much for you to feel it. The driver doesn't have to be as close for you to feel it. From 15s, like it's going to amount to excursion. So what you feel is coming from the driver size and the driver excursion. And if you can get that driver moving, you're going to feel more. So are your dual sealed opposed, or the actual physical drivers, are the cones moving that much? If they're not, maybe that's part of the equation, because you're cutting down half the movement by having dual 15s. You might be better off with a single firing, single 15 sealed firing into your back, because you'd get potentially twice the excursion for the same volume. I don't know. It's not going to be mind blowing probably to go to 18. It might be mind blowing to go to 21 or 24, but you kind of have to figure out where that balance is. I think you can be totally satisfactory with 15s, and you can just in fact, I'll give you an illustration. And sometimes the 15s might actually be better. One of the guys named Ray that came through the Kansas City crawl, he had 15s as his near field, as I recall. And Ray's not going to be in the comments here, but I'm trying to recall a story. He had 15s and he jumped to a 24, fully expecting the 24 to blow his mind. And it would have if he actually commanded a little bit more power out of the 24. But the 24 had so much capability that by the time he turned it up where the cone was moving, it was too loud for his room and uncomfortable. I'll move this down a little bit. It was too loud for his room and uncomfortable. And so to put it in the volume place that he felt like the room wasn't overwhelming him or the sub wasn't overwhelming him, he had to turn it down enough where the 24 didn't have as much tactile feedback as the 15. So that's a caution to you, that there potentially is such a thing as too big. And that 24 in Ray's case was too big. So last I knew, he was going to go back to the 15s because the 24s weren't what he was expecting in that regard. Okay, so MFK Home Theater is saying Flex is also available with RCA, but is balanced TRS. So, I mean, Monoprice or Amazon or any of those places are going to sell adapters for that. And as long as they're short runs, you're going to be fine. Like I am using from my mini DSP a RCA to XLR connector, and I think it's just like a Monoprice premium adapter, or maybe even just a HOSA. I have several different kinds. They all work as long as they're like 3 feet. You're not going to have any trouble with that. So like, don't get lost in that. I'm a copper is copper type subscriber. You guys might have heard of M-Wave. We did some testing in one of the rooms. I brought in some coat hangers, and Ryan had some $6,000 speaker wire, and the coat hangers placed second, and the really expensive speaker wire didn't place in the top 3 or 4, I think. And I think all that ended up really just being like a guess anyway. It wasn't. There was a lot of blind auditions. People were amazed you couldn't tell the difference between a coat hanger and premium speaker wire. But really, just copper is copper. And I'm not even sure that as evidenced by the coat hanger, you can get away with a lot less than like that too, because coat hanger would just be like cheap tin metal that's like scrap metal. It's not even good copper. And people placed it second in this long list of speaker wire. So don't get lost on that. It's all about the distance. You can get probably a decent cable for $5 or $10 that will meet your need, and as long as it's copper, you're going to be fine. Okay, so I'm going to keep scrolling down here. All right, Anthony says, I have a speaker. I noticed in pink noise something off, like a rattle or distortion in the tweeter, only a low volume where it's noticeable, but not louder. Warranty worth it? Not in content. Top Chan. Yeah. If you've noticed it in only one speaker and not the other speakers, then yeah, to me, it'd be time to get a warranty replacement. And if you contact the manufacturer, I don't think you said so far who made it. A lot of times, if you can message them and just be like, hey, I know how to replace a tweeter, I can do this myself. They might just send you the tweeter and you can pop it in there and not have to ship your whole speaker and be mindful of damage that might incur there. I know when I had some Wharfdale products, I blew a driver from time to time. This was 20 years ago, and I would just contact Wharfdale and they would send me a new driver and I would replace it myself. So that might be an option you could consider. But yes, if you have multiple of those speakers and it only does it with one speaker, yeah, it's probably time to get that thing replaced. So we got a couple people saying that they agree with me on auto EQ. This is kind of a relatively unpopular opinion. Like if you go on AVS forum, there's a lot of people who kind of don't really understand why auto EQ could be a bad thing, but I think we talked about it enough to kind of explain why. And if you look at it in real-time graphs, so like OmniMic or REW or something where you can kind of monitor any real-time analyzer, you can monitor what's happening with the frequency responses. It really is telling. And I'm going to tell you one more story on that I think will be telling too. So one of our new guys in Kansas City, he's been around for a few years. His name is Ian. He did what all of us did when we first got our measurement microphones and our DSP, and we thought we were really hot stuff. He called me over to his room to check it out, and he had made his subwoofer frequency response. He had 2 Marty subs. He had made his subwoofer response ruler flat in the center seat. I mean, just like pancake flat. He'd applied so many granular filters and just made it perfect. And he started playing sweeps for me, and I happened to be standing in the left chair. I mean, this is going to sound like I'm making it up because it's kind of similar to the same story I told with the storm and turnoff, but I'm not. I'm telling you this is how this works. I went over. He has smaller room, similar to mine. I mean, it's not a huge room. And I went over in the left seat, and I was kind of standing there as he was doing sweeps, and it did not sound like a smooth sweep. Anyone who's done any kind of audio calibration, you know how a sweep should sound real smooth front to end. There shouldn't be any like bulges in the sound response, if you will, like where it sounds different at a certain frequency or louder at a certain frequency. It sounded like that driver was having troubles. Like I don't remember the frequencies at this point. It's been a few years ago, but it did not sound like a smooth sweep. It was very plainly not a smooth sweep. But if you went in that center seat, and I before I said anything to him, I walked back and forth, and I heard that it sounded great right behind that seat. And in this left chair, it sounded awful. And I said, Ian, come over here, stand over here, and listen to your sweep in this spot. And he's like, oh, what's wrong with this? Why is this so different? And we talked about boundary nulls and gains and room modes and all that kind of stuff that affect the response. Went over there and measured, and sure enough, there was a giant bulge and a deep dip, and it was not ruler flat in the seat next to it. So that same thing applied. Like, say he had tried to fix, I'm just making this up, but say he had tried to fix 47 hertz and he had applied 5 dB of boost. Well, that left seat might have already been hot at 47 hertz. And so now that 5 dB became 10 dB hot. And now that frequency, it's like, think about a piano. If one note as you're playing up the scale was way louder than the note on either side of it, it doesn't make sense. It ruins the music. It takes you out of the music. So that real granular EQ for a single seat, I'm not for it for these reasons that we're talking about. Okay, so let's keep going here. Did you look at the Anthem AV92? I was between that and AV10 and ended up with Anthem based on the extensive comparison video on all the Audioholics. I don't have very much experience with Anthem. I had my hands on one in our Auto EQ comparison in 2014 that was like a higher end Anthem, and I liked it. I think that their ARC system, their reports lie. They look really perfect. Like, I think it's like a simulated, here's what we expect this to be, but they don't actually measure it and give it to you. So we get the report. It looks like it's perfect. Like ARC was doing amazing things. And then I would measure with OmniMic, and it was not doing what ARC was saying it was doing. But I like the receivers. They also have a nice heavy duty like quality feel to the touch. They have that nice LCD screen. I don't have any recent experience with them, but I'm kind of surprised. I guess I haven't seen that video from Audioholics. I know Gene loves his AV10, and I've heard him say as much, maybe it's been a couple years ago now, that's like one of his favorite receivers that's ever come out. So yeah, curious. I'll have to catch up. I didn't know he'd switched over to AV90. Okay, so here we got a comment from Silly Llama saying, I find it sometimes better to use high shelf and low shelf curves to get the gradual curve you're looking for, rather than being so precise where you have crazy high Q factors. You are spot on, Silly Llama. I agree with you 100%. Okay, so Jeff Fry says, I probably already know the answer, but any opinions on Dirac ART coming to brands, DIN and AVRs, and I assume processors that have 4 subwoofer outs as another upgradable paid option. Yeah, I mean, it's supposed to come out, and I've actually heard on AVS Forum it's supposed to come out this year. So it's 2025, mid-year. We'll see. I don't know. It's supposed to come out by the December 2025 is the newest thing I've heard. I've experienced Dirac ART. That was something we played with in here with Storm a little bit. We played with it at M-Wave. I've heard it in Ryan's room. It does things. Whether you like it or not is another thing to consider. It does seem to kind of deaden the room a little bit, and I kind of think a lot of people might find that it deadens it a little bit more than they're used to. So while it might be more accurate, it may not be preferred, as odd as that sounds. And I've experienced that a couple times in a couple different rooms. Let me put it this way, and it's not specifically speaking to art, but live sound that we're used to, like you go to a public concert, you go to a bar, or to any place where there's live music, the fidelity on that is not as good as what we try to achieve in home theater. I think that sometimes we might go too far and take it out of our preference level. I've experienced enough times in my life where I've kind of noticed that someone will say they really like something a little bit more, and it actually is doing nothing more than adding a little bit of distortion or comb filtering or adding a little bit of delay. So there's a little bit of reverb or latency in the sound. Case in point, I'll give you a few examples here. The the Marantz HDAM filters were nothing more than a distortion filter. And so everybody had marveled for years, marveled about how Marantz was the best for music over Denon because it had those HDAM filters, and they were very preferred, made music sonically better. Like if you wanted a music listening experience, you bought a Marantz. If you wanted a home theater experience, you bought a Denon. ASR was like really the first time people got a microscope on it and figured out which HDM modules did. They did a teardown and figured out that HDAM modules did nothing more than add a little bit of distortion. So it's ironic that for all those years when people didn't know what they were actually doing, what they were really craving was a little bit more distortion than not. So that's a great example of that kind of thing. I had another friend who told me how much he loved having two speakers on the left and right instead of just one, and that just adds a little bit of reverb or latency, probably a little bit more of a live sound in his room. Let's see. Oro 3D and Oro 2D. Everybody says how much, if you read the forums years ago, how great they were for music. Everyone loves Oro 2D for music. I did a measurement with my Omni mic on Oro 2D versus Dolby Surround. Oro 2D added harmonic distortions, like noticeable harmonic distortions, 20 or 30 dB of harmonic distortions. And I have measurements out on the AVS forum. You can find it. I think the thread is called like, why does everyone love Oro 2D? And it's by Archaea. You'll find that thread out there. You'll find the measurements on there. So, like these things, the savvy manufacturers have kind of figured out that people don't necessarily want it as clean as they think they want it. And so they're literally adding a little bit of distortion back in because that's what people are used to. That's what they know. That's what they're kind of expecting. And if something's too clean, it sounds too surgical, too clinical, too dry, maybe. So there you go. All right. So Jeff says, here's the next question from Jeff. How do you add that smiley face with Odyssey? Using multi-EQ app, since there's not really a way to make your own custom curve without the side AO one alternatives from what I'm aware. You got to buy that $20 app for your phone, and then you can make any curve you want, and you can put a little EQ in there with Odyssey. I find I would probably use Odyssey with the little calibration customization like you're talking about, except for it's not reliable in the sense of like doing my time alignment for my tactile transducers. If I run Odyssey several times, it always seems like it's just slightly different on that. And also, maybe you can now where you could just turn off Subwoofer 4 or Subwoofer 3 and have that feed your tactile. But in the old days, before the $20 app, you just couldn't even do that. Like if you ran Odyssey, your subs were going to be getting some sort of EQ if they were engaged with Odyssey. And as soon as you tried to turn that off or something, you would turn off Odyssey. And if you had that EQ in there, you never wanted that for your tactile transducers. You just want a raw subwoofer signal for your tactile transducers. So yeah, I think you can do that short of the $150, $200, whatever it is, multi-QX app using the $20 Odyssey app. And if you don't have tactile transducers to play with, by all means, give it a go. So Reese says, I ordered an AV10 from Ryan this morning with my system. Fantastic. I think you'll really like it. Like, I don't know where they're going to go from here. This is an interesting concept, right? So Marantz AV10, what is it lacking? Until they do something with like speakers on the floor or something to get more surround speakers, where are you going? Where does it end? We're already well above human hearing. It's got more speakers than most rooms can actually do with. Like I just said earlier, I'm not even using 2 of the speakers I have hung because it's detrimental to my soundstage. So like, what's next? They kind of have boxed themselves into a final solution. I guess, maybe it'll be HDMI upgrades with like another 3D generation or an 8K 120. That kind of stuff might drive people to go. But sonically and speaker wise and Dolby Atmos codec wise and DTS codec wise, like maybe I don't have the imagination, but I feel like we're sort of in game. I think they could do something where they could release something with more subwoofer outputs. Like there's 4 and they have directional bass, which is not legitimate as far as an improvement. Like I tested that pretty extensively in here with multiple people and nobody could even tell it was on versus having it not on. In fact, people thought that when it was not on, it was the directional bass. So it was kind of doing the opposite effect. It wasn't as effective as it should have been. I have a whole thread on ABS forum on that with lots of demo clips and very much specifics on there. So directional bass is kind of a bust, but maybe you want to have 4 subwoofers around the room and then you want some extra subwoofers for tactile feedback, and that could all be built in the receiver. They could improve the GUI, but sonically, we're already above human hearing. Where are you going? Where are you going, Denon? Where are you going, Storm and Trinoff? Like it's bells and whistles time at this point. Okay, so I try, man. I can only say what I can say. And the reason we like I say, we were intending to do this Storm and Trinoff and kind of have a review and have some different guys come in and say, but ultimately we didn't get that done, and it wasn't really fair to judge those systems like in a totality and give it a score and a ranking on one room. I mean, that wouldn't be the right way to do it. The right way to do it would be like, hey, we got 2 or 3 rooms or a half dozen rooms. We've tested this room, and consistently this group of people like the Storm better, or this group of people like the Trinoff better, and that was consistent speaker to speaker, layout to layout, room to room. Then you could gauge a winner. Ultimately, the other thing that's kind of interesting is Ryan has both those systems in his room, the Storm and the Trinoff, and he has had professional calibrators come in and make them sound identical. And that's an interesting feat in itself, that you can, through auto EQ, manual DSP, all that kind of stuff. He has a fast switching mechanism, which is like immediately to the point where you don't even know he switched it and you can't tell. And their goal was just to kind of prove that, like, hey, you can make it the same. So with any of these high caliber systems, you can do whatever you want with it if you have the knowledge. And if you don't have the knowledge, I'll just argue that potentially you'd be better off just making like a little smiley face EQ, or maybe a Harman House curve if you prefer that, where it just trails off at like, say, 10 hertz or 10,000 hertz or 12,000 hertz or 15,000 hertz, and is pretty much perceived liked by most people. So MW says, if you don't need crossovers and go Marantz, so now it has Dirac ART. Soon it will have Dirac ART. Okay, so Big Jack says, I have a Trinoff and an AV10. Over years of experience with AV10 and 5 months with Trinoffs, 90% of people would have better control with AV10 and Dirac bass control. I don't have much experience with Dirac bass control. I didn't buy that package with my AV10 because of all the things I talked about, but I'm glad you're liking it. I think some people have told me that the Trinoff experience has been kind of rough with AV10, and maybe that might be better with Storm. For Dirac, I think I said Trinoff, but I meant Dirac might be better with Storm. But maybe they've sorted that out. They've had a couple years to get it straightened out. I think at first it had some issues as far as calibrations, reliability, that kind of stuff. All right, so MK Home Theater says, MKF Home Theater, the only thing I don't like about AV10 is because I use an anamorphic lens, I lose the on-screen volume level display. Hey, so let's see. I think maybe that's not true. I think and if Ryan gets here, we can maybe answer, circle back to this if we need to. I think a Mad VR product can bring that back on the screen if it's off. I think I've heard Ryan talk about that before. MW says the Storm has double the taps as the Marantz, and the Dirac is implemented without cutting any corners. Yeah, sure. Okay. I don't use any of those things, but you'll have to prove to me that you can actually hear that. That'd be the only rebuttal I'd have against that, because again, there's a lot of things in this hobby that are bench readable, but not human audible. That's my opinion. Okay, so Big Jack 79 says, hey, the Trinoff delay for picking up Dolby Atmos is not fixed, but it's roughly down to 3 seconds. I use the middle Apple remote to scroll back after 2 seconds. 3 seconds isn't like awful, but I'd rather have none. That's where my head's at. Halo product, you're gonna pay $20,000-$30,000 for it and miss the first 3 seconds of every song? Like, no thanks, man. No thanks. So what was your opinion of the Kef blades in Ryan's living room? What did Ryan use for amplification for those? I don't know, man. You'll have to hear Ryan's opinion on the amplification. I did hear them, but I didn't really get to listen to them very long. I think those are kind of a cosmetic showpiece, and they sound good in his room. They're kind of airy, like he said. They're not going to do reference volume because they just have like a little 3.5 or 4-inch driver on the front of them. But their sound quality does belie their size, in the sense that, like, you see that little driver, and in my head I'm thinking like, what is that? But they sound nice in the room, and they sound open and so forth. I only listened to like half a song, or maybe a half of 2 songs. I didn't get a whole lot of time in there. We were moving around. Ryan is the better person to ask on that one. They're a pretty speaker. It's a showpiece for sure. Okay, any advantages of the AV10 over the A1H? No, not except for channel counts. No, they're going to sound identical. Even if the measurements are different on ASR, that's all above our human hearing by 20 or 30 dBs of SYNAD. So no, there's not going to be any difference. It's bells and whistles territory at that point. Okay, I don't think Trinoff can fix that delay. Super cheap Onkyo's antennas use fixed function hardware. This might just be a limitation of general computer hardware inside Trinoff. All right, not to beat a dead horse, but why? Okay, so here is Big Jack. It's pretty ridiculous the fact that none of the reviewers talk about it. I even asked audio advice about the delay exists, and they said no. That's the thing that kind of bites me, Big Jack 79, and that's why I said it's in that case of Emperor Has No Clothes a little bit to me, because like you can go back and find my thread or my post on this in the turn off thread. I asked innocently, like I didn't even know. I'd never heard that. As much as I surround myself in this hobby, I did an auto EQ shootout in 2014. We had a turn off device there that was built on the back of was a Sherman, some sort of Sherwood, some sort of S-based processor that was using, I think it was using Dirac at the time. I think I'm going down the wrong path. It wasn't turn off. That was Dirac, I think. Maybe it was turn off. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. That's 2014. Anyway, I'm just saying I'm around this hobby a lot. I never heard anyone talk about that. And when I asked the question, it was almost like a couple guys were coming out and saying like, all right, Jonathan, you're trolling here. Stop. We already know this is an issue. Like, don't tease us about this type thing. And I was like, I didn't know. I mean, why would I expect this? I figured it was a setting that I needed to fix rather than an actual issue. I don't know. I'm glad that here they got it down to 3 seconds. That's a lot more bearable than the 5 or 7 seconds that we were dealing with before. Okay, so here we go. The main win with turn off is room optimization, waveforming, excursion curves, and importantly, the codecs are not transformed. They're one-to-one from source. MW, I think that's valid. There is really some cool stuff with tinkering that you can do with turn off. There's no doubt. I mean, their website is fantastic for their model. It's like a tinkerer's dream. There's so many things in there. And I do remember going to someone's house who had the ability, he had set up a main listening position in different seats within the house and recorded them into save slots. And so if he was sitting here, he could pull up his save slot and have his main listening position all be tailored for that seat. Cause like his wife doesn't care about what the sound is. I mean, like she says she doesn't care about the sound. So why would he tailor the seat, the sound for where she's sitting? So he had the ability, and Ryan would have the ability too in his theater. Anyone who has a turnoff could do that. Probably the other ones too, because you have say different slave slots and whatnot. Quick recall. Hey, you're sitting here. This becomes your main listening position. All the speakers, all the distances, all the calibration are tailored for that seat. Sitting here this time, move it around, and now you got main listening position no matter where you're sitting. I can see value in that. Maybe it's a little bit more work, then I can just go in anywhere in my room and sit down and it sounds good. I don't have to do that. But if that's something you want the absolute best sound in a particular seat, I can see value in that. Okay, so Reese says, I was going to use 6 overhead until I read up on the problems with going beyond 4 with certain content, which honestly, the 4 plentiful means how good for my space. Yes, so some of you guys would know this. We've talked about this on several podcasts, but very specifically what he's talking about is the 9.x.2 source content, where it's hard mixed or static mixed to that. It's not object based. It's just 2 static ceiling channels. In modern consumer off the shelf products, when you have 2 channels that are static in the overhead, it mixes it to 4. So instead of having just 2 channels play here, if you have that hard static with like Onkyo, Denon, Marantz, Pioneer, all of them, all the consumer stuff, it upmixes it to 4 channels. So if you're in your main listening row here, you're getting a nice blend overhead. It's stereo mixing into where it sounds nice in the main listening position. Where if you have 6 speakers, so that's if you have 4, it works great, just blends it. If you have 6 speakers, it only puts it in the middle pair. There's no blending. So you're just getting it right here, which look where that would be for your seating position. Now it's behind, and now it sounds like your soundstage moved back. I don't know if that's the same for Turnoff or Storm. That might be a leg up for them, but for your boutique stuff, it all works like that. So there's a surprising amount of static or hard-coded type content that's 9.1.2, stuff that people might not even realize. Like Ready Player One is an example. There's tons of music on Apple Music that's Dolby Atmos that has like those static channels, and it only comes out here out of these 2 speakers if you're playing with 6 ceiling speakers. So that was super detrimental in my room because that didn't work at all. I much rather have it come out of all 4 speakers, and that's not changeable. You can't modify it with the off-the-shelf consumer products like Denon, Marantz, Pioneer, Onkyo, yada yada, Yamaha. So that's what he's talking about there. I fully agree. That almost might be a deal breaker in itself. Certainly, like movie content where you're only hearing out of these channels instead of the whole ceiling. It's not great if you have a single row and this listening position is behind your single row or the speaker line. It would work probably okay if, like, let's say instead of having here, let's point with this, instead of having here, here, and here. Let's say this was my rear, this was my center, and this was my front up here. That might work with a 6 speaker configuration, but then that seat doesn't get it great either. So pick your poison. Okay, so Big Jack says, one great thing about the turn off is I can see the heights are configured on the track to know if I need to use 6 or 4 Atmos. Yeah, they have great software on both those products, the Storm and the Turnoff. That's one of the very nice highlights. The AV10 website is functional, but it doesn't do anything fancy. You can't see like the objects moving around or anything like that. With Turnoff, you can see the objects moving around. That's cool to see the visualizer. We don't AV10 doesn't have that kind of functionality. Okay, 1/4 inch balanced, same sort of thing. Or I guess we're back kind of on the balanced flex. Yeah, there's just any kind of adapter. Don't get lost on that. It's fine. Scrolling down, MFK Home Theater says 6 flex balance my theater, 6 of them, but no single ended amps. You buy adapters go from TRS to RCA. Wow, why do you have 6 flex? You have to tell me more about that. All right, so not getting rid of the excess 13s, adding 18s or 21s. Okay, yeah. I think we might be going too far back. Maybe you'd already kind of heard about that in the previous part of the conversation, or maybe I'm just too far behind in the chat. Okay, with a floating floor or floating riser, do you think near field or tactile are still necessary? Far less necessary, but there is still something from the driver cone that gives you like an acoustic energy that's desirable, in my opinion. I recently we had one of our guys named Kevin who kind of came through, and his room is in the living room, and it's on a floating floor, like not a floating floor, but just a wooden floor on the main floor, and it's got some bounce to it, and his subs do pretty good just by themselves without having near field. And I remember him kind of always saying like he didn't need near field because he has the wooden floor and big 18s, like 418s in there, and that's enough. Like he doesn't need tactile. Well, then he went through the KC crawl pretty recently, and I think at that point he kind of did decide, like, all right, I mean, there is a difference. I appreciate my wooden floors, but I can feel that there's a difference with near field for tactile as well. So yeah, there's still something there that is beneficial, and you can feel the same thing. Like if you want to know what it is, go sit right in front of your subwoofer on the floor. Like just put your back to it, put it 4 inches away, 6 inches away, and play something bass heavy and feel it. That's what's going to be transferring to your chair, and you don't get that unless you're close. Like you can't get that no matter how many subs you have in the room. There's a different feel, but when you're in that close proximity to the sub. Do you use an XLR splitter for subs? No, I just use I think it's just a Hosa Y splitter. It's an XLR to XLR Y splitter. They're like $8 or something on Amazon. They work fine. You don't get any noise on that. Again, with short runs, not any problem. Okay, going on down. Nexago Aura Pro MK2. I have an update on my UST to Nexago. Great pick. Black level's great. Feature is the future. Iris feature is the future. What's your feedback? I have no feedback on the Aura Pro MK2. I have not seen it. I kind of read some of the threads on ABS Forum, but that's all secondhand. And a lot of the guys that speak in those threads, to be quite honest, don't have a whole lot of experience with projectors and kind of like are looking at something that's like their first nice projector. And so their feedback is always going to be glowing about how fantastic it is, but they haven't necessarily been around like high-end JVCs or Sonys or whatever. And if you have, great. I'm not speaking to you particularly. I'm just saying that's the kind of feedback that I usually see on those threads is like, hey, I came from a $300 projector and this thing blows it away. It's awesome. But they just haven't seen like, where the road ends on the projector world. Okay. Talking a little bit more about balanced amps versus not. I don't get too excited about that, but we can agree to disagree there a little bit. Okay, continuing down. Uh-oh, Anthony said he lost audio. Did you guys lose audio? Am I talking to the wind here? Can you guys hear me? Let's see if a new comment pops up. Well, no one's been saying that I'm watching reel, so I think it's okay. In my room, if my room is only 14 foot deep and I sit close to the rear wall, should I stick with a 5.x.2 setup and use the top middles, or go with a 5.x.4 with top fronts and top middles? 14 foot deep, sit close to the rear wall. Should I stick with a 5.x.2 and use top middles? Here's my experience, man. if you're using top speakers and they get very far out at all, you don't hear them anymore. They need to be drawn in closer than you think, especially if you don't have a wide dispersion speaker. So these CBTs are 150-degree dispersion, which is quite a bit, right? I'm getting the horizontal dispersion in a vertical sense that's doing wide coverage. If you get like a 45 degrees dispersion speaker, a horn up there, or a 90-degree coax or something, you're only getting 45 degrees off that speaker, which would be kind of like this, if you will, 45 degrees off that. And so your coverage isn't very good. And as you get towards the end of that coverage, it's not a nice flat frequency response. Like if you look at some of the different frequency response measurements, what they're off axis, you'll see large drops in the SPL at certain frequencies. So ideally, in my experience, just practical experience, not even looking at the graphs, the closer you can have these speakers in on most common ceiling speakers, the better. So tight overhead is better than far out. So I would, in your case, I would just go with a .2, especially since you're sitting near the front wall. Put them like, if this is your seat, put them like right here, so a little bit in front of you, not directly overhead. That'll give you a little bit more separation from your rear channels. You might even move them a little bit more than that. You're fine. It's one of those cases where at that point, your room is not conducive to having very many more speakers, and it might actually be worse for it. Okay, so back on the AV10 versus Anthem. Theo preferred the Anthem. Gene liked the AV10. I think I remember seeing that video. That's not a very new video, right? That one was maybe a year and a half ago or something. I kind of remember what you're talking about there, Brian. Okay, so yeah, there you go. I think Ryan and I had the same headspace on that one, apparently. What? I didn't know that. Dirac Art is out on the Marantz AV10. Ah, good. I hadn't heard that. I had heard that by the end of the year is what they'd said. I don't use any auto room correction. I do it all manual, and I always avoid high Q. Yes, I agree. Good. Okay. Well, with the AV10 I'm getting from Ryan, should I let it Dirac bass control handle my sealed subwoofers and 21-inch orthone driver sub separately rather than my manual setup with 2496? I'm not going to speak to Dirac bass confidently because I've heard different feedback from people, and I don't even have that system in my hands, but I've heard different people say different things. Some people say it works great in their room. Some people say they get a lot better results out of the manual EQ. If you have measuring equipment like REW or OmniMic or something, that's the better choice than just kind of blindly trusting. For my purposes, I would do manual EQ just out of the gate, like just observationally over all these years of doing this kind of stuff. I think auto EQ doesn't always handle bass correctly. Hey, Planet Hulk gave us a super chat. Thank you for that, Planet Hulk. My question is, I have two SVS PB17 Ultras. I wanted to add two SVS PC4000 13-inch cylinders for the rear because I like them. Do you think I can make that work? Yes, you can. Those are both ported subs, so you shouldn't have any problem. I don't know if the port tunes are different, but it probably won't matter if it's a couple hertz different in this case. Those are both nice. Like those PC4000 subs, the 13-inch cylinders, I've heard those. I like those. And your PB17 Ultras, I don't think I've heard those yet, unless they were at M-Wave and I didn't realize it. But I generally like SVS. I mean, I think that they're a quality brand, and that's a good product. So yes, I think you can absolutely make that work. There's no reason you couldn't. Even if they were sealed and ported, I think I would say at that point that you could put the sealed right behind you and put the ported up front and probably make that work too. But since they're both ported, even better. Okay, scrolling down. I see a little comment about the super chat. Oh, there it is. Yep, we got you. Did I answer your question, Planet Hulk? Do you have anything else with that? Any other questions? Thanks again. Appreciate that. Never required, but appreciated. Okay, so Odyssey PC app is free now. Pretty sure that was a quiet update, but it wasn't. I wasn't charged in the Microsoft Store. If that's the case, Revive, that's fantastic because I have been curious to play with it, but I didn't. Since I always do manual EQ, I kind of didn't want to spend $150 for something I probably wouldn't end up using. But if it's free, I will definitely check it out. And I think $150 was a Black Friday price. Wasn't it $200 for a while? Or maybe it still was $200 until recently. Yeah. All right. Very cool. I will check that out after the podcast and see if that's the case. Yes, Ryan B., you are absolutely correct. I don't know who we need to tell to get that to happen, but it doesn't make any sense. It's worthless. The tactile transducer function on the AV10 without audio delay functionality is absolutely worthless, unusable. So it's a half implemented feature. I thought they would have fixed it by firmware by now, but they don't. So the way they haven't, the way around it is, in my case, I just don't use auto EQ. Like I run Odyssey and turn it off, so that sets my distances, and then I use Subwoofer 4 for my tactile transducer. I used to use Subwoofer 3 and 4 for my tactile transducer. Without Odyssey, it doesn't matter. With Odyssey, you'd have to hook a sub up to it so it could recognize something, and then use the app to like filter it out so it wasn't applying EQ to that channel. That's all nonsense and frustrating. And I don't know who to tell. Like, how do we get that march? It seems like it would be a real simple fix, and I don't understand why they haven't fixed it. Why I haven't heard that feedback. I put it in the AVS forum thread multiple times. I think other people have as well. I don't know how to get that done. Both the AV10 and the AV90 could add 2 more side channels for 2 rows of seatings. You're saying as far as in like a future upgrade functionality? Yeah, potentially. I've been in a theater called David Beck is his name, and it's called the Savoy, and it's in Des Moines, Iowa. And he did extra surrounds like that, side surrounds, just using like computer software, and it works really well to have that. I mean, it was better than the 7.1 in his room. It was a fairly large room, so yeah, I mean, I could see there being advantages there. I don't think in my room with my speakers it would be particularly beneficial, but certain larger rooms with more narrow dispersion speakers, sure. I don't use any of the 4 sub outputs on my AV10. I just use a mini DSP flex to control the bass. Yeah, fair. I am running 9.4.6 now and would love to have 11.6.6. Brian, if you do that, report back. I'd like to know if you think that's worthwhile. I personally think that 9.4 or 9.x, let's not even say subwoofers, let's just say 9.x.4 is the realm of diminishing returns. In my opinion, in multiple systems, I think that's where like it's very, very incremental improvements once you go beyond that. If they could incorporate MadVR type video processing into AVR, that would be cool. Yeah, all right. Well, I don't disagree, but consider what MadVR has in it. Their minimum offering is like a 3080 graphics card, and that's $600-800 type graphics card with all kinds of cooling requirements, and that's not going to fit in AVR very well. Now, you could do a lighter version, like maybe a Lumagen version, maybe like a JRiver JVVR, which I think can run on like a 1060 or something like that from NVIDIA. Yes, but it would definitely incorporate expense. It would definitely require more cooling. Like the AV10's like effectively passively cool. I've never even seen the fans turn on mine. I think it has fans in there, but they don't engage. So yeah. Ryan B asked if there's any good videos to learn how to use the Flex with REW. I'm going to ask one of the other attendees here if you got any ideas for that. I don't have any ideas off that for the top of my head. If you don't find anything with a search, maybe someone will have an answer for you on AVS forum or one of the other forums. Oh, look, I'm so far behind. I apologize, guys. It's got to be kind of painful. But we did talk about this earlier, like where the captions or whatnot are off the screen, and MadVR can bring that back up on the screen, and that's why he bought the MadVR. So he confirmed that is possible. All right, MW says, I had 2 turnoffs and now 2 storms, and they both trade blows, object movements better, and turnoff. Dirac manages phase better. Why have you had 2 of each? Are you running these things in different rooms, or what's your reasoning for 2? And now we'll answer that question in a half hour when we get back to it on the chat here. On that, Anthony says, I got rid of the OSD volume and I won't go back. Took getting used to, but now I love setting a taste, not having the motivation to make it a certain number. Yeah, I go back and forth on that, Anthony. Sometimes if I'm doing demos with guests and stuff, like an M-Wave demo or something, I will turn off the OSD volume. But in general practice, like just day in and day out, I have my OSD on. I like being able to see what's going on with thing and get into the menus and so forth and see the info button, make sure that the track is playing what I think it's playing real easily. I do like that. Yeah, we're in agreement, MW. The calibration makes all the difference when you get to these Halo tier products. So Anthony says A1H has the same channel count, I believe. No. A1H has 13, right? Instead of 15? Let me look it up. Oh, A1, that's not what I was thinking of. That's Denon product. A1H is Denon product. Yes, you're right. That's 15. I apologize, Anthony. I stand corrected. Okay, so MW says the turnoff delay cannot be fixed because it processes with software, now chip, unlike the others. It processes that with software, not a chip, unlike the others. Well, then, I mean, MW, in my opinion, they need to change that, right? Okay. I mean, that was kind of my response when the forum, when I talked about this a couple years ago and I ran into the situation. Like, that's just the way it is. We don't have a fix for it. We'd like to fix it in the future. Like, okay, that's not acceptable. Fix it now. Like, that, don't push that off. That doesn't make sense. Okay, coming from the mixing, mastering, and Atmos mix stage world. Cool. Turnoff has pretty much been the standard across the rooms due to the bells and whistles. All right. The elephant in the room when it comes to processors is that the CP950A is the absolute king and no one knows about it playing back true DCI format. I don't know about it. CP950A. Let me Google that. CP950A. Cinema processor by Dolby Atmos. It's Dolby Professional. Yeah, I mean, that's a gear tier that I'm not familiar with. I'd like to be more familiar with it, but I am not. We'll support up to 64 channels of digital output using AES or BlueLink. BlueLink's cool. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. 64 channels. That's probably not in the consumer price bracket, I would expect, but maybe you could unload it at some sort of theater that goes out of business or something. Thanks for the home theater evening surgery. Are there any movies on UHD or Blu-ray that are noticeably more consistently employ front-wide content? Love the idea of a 9.4.4 system at some point. Oh, man. That's a tough question, and I don't know. I haven't really tried to track that specifically. I know even the upmixers, after, let's see, when Dolby Surround first came out, it did not support front wides. At some point within like the first year and a half when Dolby Surround came out on these Denon processors, we're talking like 2014, 15, 16 type time frame. Sometime within the first couple years, they added wides to Dolby Surround, kind of at customer solicitation. Like we were saying, put it in, we want it. And I think also DTS Neural X had it, and so they kind of had to add it to be competitive. But there's a lot of content that I even have something that comes to mind very specifically. There was some cartoon animation about trolls or something like that that my kids and I were watching together at one point on Netflix. And in 5.1, you didn't have nearly as cool like music functionality as you did when you put it in Dolby Surround when they added the front wides, because Dolby Surround put the music for that particular cartoon in the front wides, which was really cool on the intro video. I really noticed that and enjoyed it. As far as a list or something, you'd probably have to go to AVS Forum to get that kind of list. I don't have that on the tip of my tongue, but certainly, for me personally, I love wides. Like, I wouldn't get rid of them. I would probably get rid of surround backs or one of my ceiling sets before I get rid of front wides. I really enjoy front wides in my room. I think they fill a nice gap between my left front and my left surround. Like, it just fills a nice little hole there. And plus, with Dolby, I listen to a lot of Dolby Atmos music. Dolby Atmos music has a lot of front wide use. In fact, sometimes even the like front soundstage instruments are playing out of the front wide, and the vocal might come from the center. It opens up the soundstage. It opens up the width of the room. I like it a lot. MFK home theater. My CBTs use multiple amplifiers per speaker. Every speaker in the room has one or more DSP channels. The Atmos are the only ones that don't have dedicated DSPs for speakers. I love your setup. I would love to come visit it sometime. I've watched some of your videos. I haven't kept up with you most recently. I know you are making great progress. I need to go back to your channel and check it out. If you guys haven't checked out MFK Home Theater's room, he's got CBT line arrays that are do-it-yourself, that are ginormous compared to these, and a thing of beauty. Like he's doing it right, and I'm sure it's going to be super impressive. He's got an infinite baffle subwoofer system. I think it's going in his ceiling with 18s, and like it's going to be a phenomenal theater. And maybe it's already done. Like I said, I haven't kept it up immediately, but that's a really cool theater coming together. I don't know the answer to this. Is there an advantage over moving mini to display flex with the older 2.4? I'll let someone in the comments speak to that. Maybe they already have. I haven't kept up. My mini 2x4 does the deal for me, and I haven't even looked at anything newer since it does what I need. Where did you get your acoustic curved panels? Looking to find something like that. Are you talking about these things on my back wall here? That's on eBay. Let me find the link and I'll put it in chat. And if you're still here, you can find it. They are 3.5 inch dome, acoustic dome foam, and you can get a 50 by 84 inch set of them for $100. I think that's quite reasonable. I bought 2 sets. I have one for my back wall and one for my front wall. So the Spoonie, let me put this on chat here. Ooh, that didn't come across very nice, but it's good luck if you don't have access to the chat to click it. Let me see if I can just get you a product number. That might make more sense. Or an item number. It's by Foam and More, INC. Here, I'll just share my screen for a second. We'll pull it up. I really like those. I've talked about it on several podcasts in the past. I think they're an excellent choice. Entire screen. Let's just do the window. This should be fine. Share. Okay, so this is the eBay item. If you type in Foam and More Incorporated, they're 3.5 inch thick studio acoustic soundproofing foam kit, 50 by 84. Look, my theater with the old chairs is one of the pictures, so you know that it's the right one. I have no kickback for them. I have no association with them at all. I actually just messaged them and said like, hey, I'm real happy with these. I used them in my theater. Here's how I want. If it would be of any benefit to you to have these pictures rather than just kind of these stock on stainless steel pictures, you're welcome to use it. I get nothing from them. It's just I was real happy with them. That's the only reason my picture is up there. So let me cancel this. Stop screen sharing. I want to tell you why I like them. I like them because I tried the 2x4 panels that everyone uses, like with the OC703 or Rockwool, that kind of stuff. In fact, I was originally thinking about making panels that had like movie posters on them and so forth. The problem is when you got multiple seats, you can't set those panels in the right place for multiple seats. So again, you're fixing for one seat, kind of like the EQ, and you're not tailoring it for the whole set. Also, it sort of seemed more like a dead and live type fix to me with those 2x4 panels versus this. It's just that whole wall is kind of like diminished. And I'll give you a very specific, and I've said this on my Youth Men podcast tour. So if you guys have watched that, you're already familiar. But I would sit in my main listening position and I would use my SPL meter or my Omni mic and I would do my measurements and my calculators on my SPL and I get my trims all set exactly. And somehow, since my room's asymmetrical, there's more room on this side than that side. Even though the SPL meter would read like, all right, we're at 75 dB from every speaker. That side, as I'm sitting there, my right side, looking at the screen, watching the movie, my right side, it always seemed like it was louder and my ear would get more fatigued on that side. And I figured it had to be like the reverberations, the reflections, that kind of stuff that's happening, no matter what I was doing over there. And the foam fixed it. Like that foam just kind of made that wall disappear. Because it's dome, it has like a propensity to absorb and reflect at different intervals, and it just kind of mixes it all up. It works for every seat. It's a great idea. If you can stand it cosmetically, I like the cosmetic look. Some people don't. If you can stand it cosmetically, it's a great choice. And even if you can't stand it cosmetically, it's a great choice. Just put like acoustic material over it, like speaker cloth or something, and just hide it, behind panels, and that's a great choice. Okay, moving on. Let's go. Oh, now it dropped me way down in chat. Let's see if I can catch up. Okay, people saying I can hear you. That's when we were wondering if there was an issue with sound. Okay, Reese says, all right, like with my existing subwoofer config through the DCX 2496. I'm surprised you're still using that, by the way. Dirac Live bass control does well as it is, which I can definitely stick with manually, tuning the mixed subwoofer systems. Yeah, all right, good. Okay, so Flyjock says, I'm running ported subs up front and sealed as near field with no problem. Yeah, that's how I'd do it if I was going to do it, because the sealed you're using for tactile, they're lower level than the front subs anyway, because you don't want that sound to seem like it's coming from behind you. We've talked about why ported is better than I'm sorry, why sealed is better than ported for near field subs, because at the port tune, the driver effectively stops moving and it's relying on the resonance of the cabinet to move, where sealed don't have that. As the frequency goes deeper, the sealed sub continues to the excursion becomes more, and so you get more of that feel. So by all means, if you have the option, the sealed should be near field and the ported should be in the front of the room. Also, you don't hear the port shuffling if the ported aren't near field, which can be a problem if they're near field. Do I have a Kaleidescape in your system and do I like it? I don't. Ryan does. I do like them. The price is the pain point for me. Maybe someday, maybe sometime. I do like the Kaleidescape system. I especially like it for demo content. I think that's a fantastic system that they have, where you have like 6 demo clips of any movie that you download, which are kind of like curated by the Kaleidescape people, or you can submit for your own timestamps and so forth if you want to submit the demos. I love that. I think it's a great system. If I was going to give any feedback to Kaleidescape, it would be like release cheaper lines. And I know they just released a couple things like that E-Strat and the whatever that were like the cheaper models, but they're not cheap enough and they're being too stingy on the hard drive space. Like 480 gigabyte drive is not acceptable to me. That would fit like 6 movies. And then, I don't. I know they say the download speed's only like 10 minutes to get a new movie. Like, I would be wanting the Kaleidescape to be doing the demo content, so I would want to have a slew of movies on there so I could pull different demo clips. Like, even if I wasn't going to watch all the movies in full, I would want the demo clip things. And 480 gigabytes is like, I'm going to be honest, that's insulting. Like, I don't know if you guys follow PC hardware, but a 1 terabyte drive is like $50 or $60 now, $70 if you get like a premium Samsung drive. So why are they putting like a 480 gig drive in that's like $25 on a $1,000 system, like the $1,500 system, a $2,000 system? That doesn't make any sense. I would so rather than see them put in. I mean, I've talked about this on AVS forum, and I gave the advice to them. I'm nobody. They're not going to listen to me. But let's talk about it. You can buy a 22 terabyte drive for a couple $100 all day long on Slick Deals retail. Slickdeals.net retail. If I can buy a 22 terabyte drive as a customer has no tie to the industry for $200, then they can get it for at least that price and probably cheaper. I would so rather see a 22 terabyte drive in there and pay a little extra on the device than a 480 gigabyte SSD. Like, I don't understand the logic on that. And I know that they want to have a reason to upsell their expensive systems with the larger drive size. But I mean, like, in my opinion, they should get that product. It's such a good product. They should get that product in the hands of a lot more people. And if they aren't making any money on the subscriptions, which I don't believe, although I've heard some people try to say that, if they're not making any money on the movie licensing, then charge an extra $1 or $2 on the movie licensing to make a little bit of money there. You get that device into the hands of a whole lot of consumers, and you make your money, or you make a little bit more money on the movie subscriptions, on the licensing, on the download of the purchase of the movie license, even if it's a small amount. Like, I don't understand the desire to keep it a boutique status. I mean, maybe you just want to keep your company small and you don't want to get overrun. But in my opinion, they could really do a lot better if they put a large drive in there. And, heck, if you don't want to do a 22 terabyte because it encroaches on your high-end systems, then do a 12 terabyte or a 14 terabyte. And frankly, in my opinion, there's enough profit margin in there to not even raise price. But if you want to raise price a few $100s for it, fine, do it. 480 gigs is dumb. It's just what it is. It's dumb. Okay, so email Phil Jones at Massimo Consumer. He'll speak to the engineers and they will add the feature to an update. Phil is awesome. Superfly, help me reach out to Phil Jones and I will do it. I will talk to anyone I can to get that tactile transducer feedback where we can have a delay set within the receiver. So MW says MadVR has a 5080 for motion AI. Yeah, the new Mach 2s or whatever have the 5080s. So even more. I mean, you're not fitting that in a AVR or a typical processor that you put in your hot rack. So Reese says, when I went from 7.1.4 to 9.1.4, I noticed there wasn't many content for the front wides and a lot of my movie content, sadly. Yeah, so maybe. There's certainly content there, and sometimes it may not be in every track, it may not be in every movie, but there's enough there that I really love the wides. Like, you take them from my cold dead fingers. I'm pretty sure that's because MadVR is extremely inefficient. I still love it. My intuition was that it's mostly wasted. There's got to be a little truth to that. I don't know. I mean, that guy's a genius that created this thing. But J River is an alternative to Mad VR, and they're making leaps and bounds, and they're not nearly as hardware intensive. So there's that. Like, I also think that just like there's diminishing returns with our hardware equipment and our home theater equipment, there's probably this situation where like you can get 90% of the image quality with 10% of the hardware, and then to get that last little bit that makes it really like a cut above, that's where the extreme processing requirements come in to get those high-end gaming graphics cards and so forth. Revive says you don't need that much GPU horsepower to do what Mad VR does, just like hardware encoders can do more than a GPU or CPU for dedicated tasks, Sony image processors. Yeah, or you can make an ASIC or FPGU type thing for those type of situations that is very case specific and not general purpose like a GPU. I think the GPU came around because at the time that's what they had access to. As he's developing this stuff with his genius abilities on the side, that's what he had access to. He didn't have access to like the dedicated ASICs or that type of hardware. Now that Mad VR is a legitimate company, like where they're selling a lot of processors and it's gaining ground, it's like a standing company and not just kind of a freeware thing like it used to be, then maybe that's something that they could look into in the future, to have like dedicated hardware that they develop for this and have licensed out and everything. I went to a Samsung Onx theater in Los Angeles, Adam says, that had 22 JBL CBT 70J1s encircling the seats, incredible sound, and the resolution of a huge video wall is addictive. Adam, you're speaking to my experience probably back in like 2014, 15, whatever it was. Group of the Kansas City guys went to an AMC Prime. They had the JBL CBT 70J1s with these red lights in them, just like what I mimicked. And I loved it. That's still to this day is my favorite cinema experience. Sadly, after just like a couple experiences there, that cinema from AMC Prime got rebranded to Dolby Cinema. Dolby Cinema had a contract. They had to use whatever speakers Dolby Cinema had. They ripped out the 70J1s and put in some inferior speaker, and it's never been as good since. But that experience for me at the AMC Prime is why I own these speakers. I loved them. I loved that sound. The surround field was the best I'd ever heard in a movie theater. Okay, so MW said, had two each because home theater is just a hobby for me. This is going back to the 2 AV10 versus the 2 Storm. Two each because it's a hobby for me, and I swapped to the new Storm for the new DAC and new processing. That's awesome, MW. I mean, that sounds like you're having some fun, getting to play. Good. I agree, Superfly. You guys are all speaking my language tonight. I feel like front wides are better than surround rears. I wouldn't give up my surround rears willingly either. I'm just saying I really like the front wides. Like they are on the money. Surround rears are really important. Like you can't say get rid of them, but I think front wides are right there with them. 5.1.4 or 7.1.2. If 7.1.2, would you move to Atmos? I kind of think 4 ceiling speakers is a sweet spot. But giving up at this point, you're giving up rear surround, right? You're losing your rear surround to have the 4 ceiling speakers. All right, let's put it this way. It probably would depend on how much, like what age content are you watching? Because think about it. Probably 90%, 95% of all content is going to be better matched to 7.1.2 than it is to 5.1.4, because all the old Dolby Digital content, like True HD, DTS Master Audio, that stuff, that's going to be at max 7 channels. So you're going to upmix to that point too, but it's going to be natively 7 channels. So you would want those 7 channels for majority content. If you only care about new stuff and all the old stuff doesn't float your boat, then maybe go for the new Atmos content. 4 ceiling speakers is nice. You can get that little like kind of swirling effect overhead that you wouldn't have with just 2 as much. But I will backtrack a little bit because I think you can do 4 speakers with just 2 channel output and split it, and I think you'll get 75% of the way there. Before I had a receiver that did 4 ceiling speakers natively or 6 ceiling speakers natively. That's exactly what I did. I had the speakers hung on these same exact spots, these 4 spots, and I just daisy chained them. I just split the signal, and that worked better than it should. Better than it had any right to work, let's say. So that could be another option. You could do 7.1.2 and just split the signal. MW says he wanted 26 channels. Do you have 26 channels in your room, man? There's very few people that have that. That's pretty fantastic. In fact, probably the only room that I've been in that had many channels was Ryan's room when he had the electrostats. He had about that many channels, and maybe not quite that many, but right up there, and it was very impressive. I do think, and I still stand by this, and I'll still say it just freely. It's so far into the realm of diminishing returns at that point that I think you could just start taking channels away and not even know they're gone. Just to be honest, but it's fun conceptually since we're all enthusiasts and hobbyists here to think about those kinds of things. So it's fun. Monty says it's finally finished. I haven't updated the channel for a while. You need to make a trip out to Austin, check it out. I do. I would love to do that. Let's make a connection through PM and see when we can make that happen. I'd love to do that. Okay, so coming down here, Adam, what's the context of this particular comment? It seems like maybe you guys had a side conversation and I missed out. Or MW rather. Give me some feedback on that. So the blacks were a massive step above Dolby theaters. I have to watch an animated film to truly check the colors. I saw a Final Destination account there, so hard to get a feel for that. Okay, so he's talking about the projector in that room with the CBT 70J1s, I think. Scrolling down, Adam says it's his new favorite theater, so I guess I'm okay to drop in colors for the contrast resolution. Trying to get a feel for the center channel sitting above the screen. Okay, so Reese confirms, yeah, I'm still using the DCX 2496. It's what he's using it for, to cross over to his subs in various systems. That interface looked ancient 15 years ago. That's the only reason that I say it's kind of funny that you're still using that. Nothing wrong with it. The system is capable, but that interface looked like it was straight out of like Windows 3.11. have they updated the interface, or is it still pretty ratty? All right, so... And he's saying the reason he's doing it because the Orthorns need to be mixed in with sealed subwoofers. Yeah, that's a good challenge to try to mix in those high-tuned Orthorns with a sealed subwoofer. Okay, so Anthony's in agreement with me on the Kaleidescape, the Strato stuff, like with the 480 gig drive. But you did bought one. I don't fault you for buying one. They're such a cool system. I don't fault you for buying one. But I do think that they need to be smacked on the back of the head and allow at least a user upgradable hard drive function. I mean, like, come on. Yeah, there you go. Ben's on the same page. The very next message. They should have a user replaceable storage. Yeah, like why would that hurt them too much to do that? If a customer can't do it, they can even do an upcharge. I mean, it'd be simple enough to do. Heck, you could even get like a little off the shelf NAS bay type system that would let the consumer replace the drive pretty easily, and run your system in that. So Reese says, I'm happy with the R-Evolution player, simply accessing my media off the storage server. I want to know more about that, Reese. I have watched some little trailers, some little videos on that. Are you encountering any bugs with that system? Is it really reliable? Does it mess up after you play 10 clips and go south? Or are you enjoying it in the sense where there's like hands off, it just works? That's what I want to know about. Also, are they addressing any bugs you encountered? Like, are you seeing firmware revisions and that kind of stuff? Revive says Massimo Consumer isn't. That's not even Massimo anymore. They got purchased out, right? Then they're not in that company anymore. Isn't likely going to be taking incoming comms soon. I think they're under Samsung now. Revive, if they haven't stopped already with Harman purchasing. There you go. You're on the same page. I just hadn't read that far yet. Yeah, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure what I think about that consolidation. And we talked about that in one of the podcasts. I guess yet to be seen. I hope they don't say, like, Denon and Marantz have historically had such a good pedigree. I'm hoping they don't drop it to the level of a lot of the other consumer products and say, like, it's good enough. Like, watch ASR, the reviews. Every single time they release a processor, it's got better measurements than the one before. They are leaders as far as reliability and stability and firmware releases and so forth. You kind of just hate to see that trajectory change, and I'm hoping that they won't. Jeffrey says there's a whole ABS forum thread that shows activity for wides and 6-channel Atmos. Yeah, there is. AWOL, what's his name that runs that thread? That's a fantastic resource. AWOL or something like that, I think is the one that runs. I don't remember. But yes, he has some software that determines channel activity, how many channels it runs for all the different movies. They have a wide array of testing going on there. MW says RTX cards and MadVR isn't efficient. Agreed. But the research and development to make cheaper options is extremely high. So they use off-the-shelf hardware. That only goes so far, MW. I feel like once you get to a certain customer profile, like a threshold, that's no longer a valid excuse. Like you're just having a lot of extra expense, a lot of extra heat, a lot of extra hardware that's not necessary, because I think you could do it with ASICs or FPGAs more effectively once you get to a certain customer base size. And I don't have any idea where that is or where that was, but those conversations should be made with engineers to kind of figure out where that goes. Okay. Scrolling down. This is fair. Jeff says he's only experienced front wides in a couple rooms, but front wides are probably more worthwhile if you have the left, center, right behind the screen, since they're typically not spread out as the Max Plus 30 from Dolby. I've always said that if you have a wide room, front wides make more sense, and if you have a very narrow room, they don't make sense, because like if you have a very linear corridor as your room, your front wides are not going to be very much wider than your front wides. Whereas like in my room, it opens up pretty well. Like there's a nice distance between my left channel and my front wide left, and having that space filled makes a lot of sense for the angles and for the full immersion perception of the sound stage, all that kind of stuff. Scrolling down. Adam says, if you had to name the top 3 most important things for the best experience, what would they be? Example, subwoofers, acoustic panels, tactile screen size, screen technology, processor. Adam, I'm going to steal your idea and use that on a future podcast and not address it here, because I want to use some time to think about it. Maybe we'll do that next week. It doesn't look like Ryan's probably going to be able to show up tonight since we're already at 9:47, but I'll talk to him and we'll have this as a future podcast. I'm going to take a little picture of that real quick so I don't forget it, and we can do that when the time comes. I like that idea. Thanks. And if you guys have good topic suggestions, always feed it to us, because we don't always have any new creative ideas. So we appreciate the ideas. Anthony says, I have an Arvolution. It's very good. They have the demo features now too. I still just bought the Kaleidescape, but new movies fast is the motivation. Revolution is massively improved by firmware update recently. That's good to hear. I had read some iffy comments on the forums. I haven't read anything most recently. I haven't even tried to look, but that's good to hear. I like the fact that you say they have the demo features now too. That's exciting. Reese says, I ran across a weird bug on the Arvolution player, but their support definitely seems responsive. There are some features I feel like they should add for better SMB management. File transfers are a little slow. Are you working off a NAS or a direct attached hard drive, or how are you doing that? Something he was willing to deal with since it supports Dolby Vision and HDR for my needs. Okay. Anthony says they need Arvolution, we're talking about now. They need to add native 2.4.1 support. MadVR does it, but it would be in a native. Okay. Ooh, Reese got some custom firmware to try to fix an issue. Huh. Well, that is responsive. If you're getting custom firmware to test, that's cool. That's great feedback. Randy says, Kaleidescape can't allow user replaceable hard drives. Movie industry security and licensing won't allow it. They'd lose the content. Randy, I know you and I like you, and I'm not challenging you, but I am questioning you. If they're using AES 256 encryption on that drive, there's no way to hack that drive. So it would be nothing more than using the equivalent of a BitLocker function or some sort of hard drive, encryption technology, where if they're encrypting it when the drive is in motion properly, there is zero risk when it's not in motion, like when the drive's turned off. So I feel like that excuse, while it may be valid, maybe someone quoted that somewhere, doesn't seem legitimate from an IT perspective. If you have that drive locked down with encryption, nobody's getting anything off of it. Ryan says, how much longer are you going to go? Jump on here, Ryan. We can talk a little bit. I'm probably going to call it quits before too long, but I'll talk a little bit when you come on. Okay. Anyone know of a speaker sales going on right now? I don't know, but I'll bring it up in the chat. You guys know of any speaker sales? Mike, if you're not familiar with slickdeals.net, SLICKDEALS.net, check that out and look up speakers. A lot of times they have kind of stuff that flies under the radar on there. And even the AVS forum section, like vendor deals, Adorama sometimes has deals on there that are like unbelievable, that are AVS forum only coupon codes and so forth. So those are two places I would kind of check. Anthony says that comment about the encryption might be kind of a cop out. DRM is DRM. Topic idea. Ben, switch out equipment right before theater crawl or hold off on a demo. A well balanced experience. Pros and cons. Yeah.
This is the place to be, I guess.
Welcome back, Ryan.
I text you and you didn't answer.
I didn't even see it. I'm all in on this thing, man.
Whatever. I get it.
There it is. How's the stream? Was it worth it for me to get on?
See?
This was a half hour ago.
I know.
What were you doing?
Waiting for you to answer, and then I just thought, oh, he's never going to answer me.
I didn't even look at it.
Doesn't respond to any of my other text messages, so why would he start now?
What's going on with your doggo, man? I'm kind of half afraid to ask.
No, he's okay. So we went into, so we've been battling this thing. It's maybe too much information. I don't think it is, but it's not gross or anything. We've been battling what we thought was urinary tract infection for a while. And he's been on 4 different stents of antibiotics. Couldn't figure out what's going on because he keeps peeing all the time. He never did that. He used to be able to hold his pee forever. He was like camel. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, month or 2 months ago, he started doing this. So he's been in the vet multiple times. He went in on the 4th and they did a catheter to collect urine directly from the bladder. They did an ultrasound. They did a bunch of stuff. One of the unusual things that came up was usually you can't see the prostate on an x-ray, and you could see the prostates. They were a little concerned that it had cysts or it was cancer or something. She didn't know because that vet isn't, and she said as such, she wasn't confident in her skills to be able to like ultrasound a prostate or do a prostate exam or any of that stuff. So we ended up going to Blue Pearl, which is like a emergency vet because they have the veterinarians to be able to do that. And they looked at stuff and they did a light ultrasound, looked at the prostate, didn't see anything weird. But then they looked at the bladder a bit more, and they think the reason he's peeing so much is because the bladder's so inflamed, the amount of urine that it can hold is so small. So they think it's just a really resistant UTI is what's happening. And so we're waiting for a culture to come back, and that's the story of my dog. So they put him on a couple pain medications and another antibiotic to get us through the weekend until Tuesday. We could do another ultrasound to really look at everything in depth with an internal medicine doctor, and we'll see where we go.
Well, I mean, considering all the outcomes, that's probably one of the better options, right?
Yeah, that was probably the best outcome that could happen aside from cysts on the prostate, cancer. I mean, having a resistant UTI is about the best you could ask for, I guess.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's okay, we think, for now.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. So the stream's been going well, it looks like.
Well, we've been just rattling through questions.
Okay.
Let me kind of catch up where we were, because we were almost at the end here. We had a nice topic idea from Adam. I'm going to just read it to you rather than try to find it on the thread. You might have caught it, maybe not. Let's see here. So he said,
only do this if you're a masochist.
If you had to name the 3 most important things for the best experience, what would they be? For example, subwoofer.
That is not the question that is on
acoustic panels, tactile screen size. I'm just reading it off my phone. Screen size, screen technology, processor. So that could be like a future topic for us. Like, what are your 3 key ingredients to a home theater? I like that topic.
Did you answer this already?
No, I said we would save it for a future podcast where we had some time to think about it and digest.
Yes, that would be a good one.
I agree.
I think that could vary widely, or we will be exactly the same. You don't know what's going on.
I don't know where we would end up. That'd be kind of fun to see. So we'll even keep it. Maybe we'll do that next week.
Okay.
So Ben has another topic idea because I solicited for topic ideas. Should you switch out equipment right before a theater crawl or hold off and demo a well-balanced experience?
Just change everything.
He's talking from experience because Ben was the guest that he's my friend. He stayed with me at my house right before a crawl, and we switched out from the LS 12,000 to the QL 3000 like day before, and kind of rattling through trying to make that be as best it could be, and didn't quite get there, but did all right.
I think if you're going to make a change, the projector's probably one of the easiest things.
Sure.
Wouldn't you agree with that?
I've done all manner of stuff. I'm not usually terribly afraid of doing it, maybe to my own detriment. I've at one point, like when I did a crawl in 2017, we had 50 people come through, and I didn't want people to think that amps, like there's kind of this logic on the forums that you need these very powerful amps, very capable amps. And
You took the amps out?
I bought them. I took all the amps out and ran the whole system on the AVR for the crawl. It works fine. Like there's no reason to have the amps in reality in most situations.
Well, I guess if they're all on the same amps, it's not a big deal as long as you can get your trims and stuff to work with the subs again.
Yeah. Well, I was just wanting to showcase because in that thread there had been things like talking about how important amps were and how much they open up the sound and so forth. And I was like, look, I have a 300 watt per channel system on my amp. You can't even tell the difference with my processor. So I'm just going to showcase that. Like,
I mean, one could blow your speakers and the other one probably couldn't. Not these speakers, but
not these.
Something
speakers.
could happen.
Oh, with 2,000 watt speakers.
No, that wouldn't happen.
Any rate, yeah. I mean, it seems like most crawls that we've done, I've switched something out last minute. I don't know. Well balanced. Are we ever well balanced? We're switching stuff out all the time anyway. It's hard to get to a state where you just feel like you haven't moved for a while. I'm always switching stuff out.
I've been switching things out not voluntarily. You know, things explode and you're just, well, I guess I'm going to change it now. You don't really have a choice. So I would try not to change things, but I feel like you're right. We're always changing things anyway.
Yeah, I haven't had a peaceful state in my home theater in 20 years.
We're bad influences on each other. Bad influences on each other. Just awful. I mean, I probably would be better for it if I never went over to your house the first time. It just would have been a more peaceful life than what's happening now.
You would have still had hair, Ryan.
I would have, yeah, because I'd still have the rels, you know, my hair wouldn't have been lost to the infrasonic brown notes, or the hair notes as we want to call them now, and it'd be a better peaceful life.
I'm sorry.
It's all your fault.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to write on my tombstone, "Life was ruined by Jonathan von England," and that's going to be it.
Tell your wife my deepest apologies.
I mean, I even called you out on the AVS stream. You were the catalyst.
To that, by the way. Congratulations. That went very well, I thought.
It was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I got asked to do that. It's a good time. So hopefully that one's successful. But yeah, I would be on a totally different trajectory if I hadn't been to your theater. And it's funny thinking about how many people have gone through your theater, and then thinking about how many launching pads or people you've launched from that launching pad into just different trajectories than they would have been had they not come to your space.
I have a funny story about that just today on the very topic. So
Astro, yeah, how did that go?
To our theaters. It was just him for my demo. It wasn't his family. It was totally fine. We didn't have enough time. I wish we had more time. We got to listen to music for quite a while, and then we watched a secret level clip, the Warhammer 40,000, and then I didn't even get into my Dolby Atmos clips on my computer. Like, we didn't even get to my normal demo content. We just ran out of time. He left about 8 because he had to. Here's the story of why this ties into what you just said. He said he came into our theaters trying to think about projector upgrades, and that was like all that was on his mind. And now that he's leaving our theaters, he's like, I've got to change my speakers. Like, my speakers don't do this.
The same thing that happened to me. You have that realization of, mine doesn't do this. And it's just, because you know when that happens, like I did with the Swans. Like, I know when I was in your room that with how our personalities are, there is no recovering from that. The brain's already off on its way. So there's no going recovering ever. I knew that I was done for. And like I said on that other stream, as soon as I left your place, a couple weeks later, JTR 4000s. And it was just not often when you get something and you go down a pathway, can you look back and go, it was you? And that was you. You were the reason. You were the
Oh,
reason. Drew, just to clarify, the amps you're going to have are not the amps that have the issue. Don't worry. You're fine. Anyway, how did we even get on? Oh, the topic about would you change anything? So the last thing you changed was the projector,
yeah. And
right?
well,
Have
and
you
the subs in December before that, as far as my room layout with these little things.
I finally got my room sounding
Yes.
happy with where it's at now.
Very
So
good.
I found multiple phase issues that were causing problems.
Yeah.
I got those resolved, and now we're back to where we want to be.
Very good.
Yeah, it's nice. I'm not stressed out anymore. I was stressed. Like, am I going to get back to where it was? Am I going to get back to that nirvana? And I did. So now I just got to figure out a way to power off the amps, because the amps in an idle state are drawing a lot when your cars don't charge as fast. I could see it. I'm looking at the timer for when it thinks it's going to be done. I'm like, that says 2.5 days, and it normally takes 9 hours. So I'm doing something. Something in the house says something, and that's what it
I have
was.
another little funny story from Astro's visit. So we were talking about projectors, and like I'll show the shortcomings and the benefits of all the things that are in my room. So like we were talking about what the QL3000 is good at and what it's not, and I showcased both. And we were talking about. And he's like, you know what? I don't think that this projector is very much dimmer than what's in Ryan's room. And I said, yeah, the difference is I'm running mine at 100% laser, and he's running his at 30% laser.
No, it's not that bad. I'm at like 55.
I said, if you ever go over there again, make sure and ask Ryan to run it 100% laser, because that is eye-opening and fun for a little
we would
while.
go from 300 and something nits to 700 nits.
Yeah. Well, mine is 375 nits on my screen. So yeah,
you're running 375.
That's 100% laser on mine by measurements.
You don't want to turn it down?
I want more.
What have we done?
You're responsible for that one, Ryan.
I know I'm responsible for that one. You got me on the subs, and I've got you on the projector. Yeah, I'm responsible for that one. I'll own that. So we were talking. The question originally was, would you upgrade before a crawl? I think we all do, unknowingly or unintentionally, but at the same time,
a lot of times we'll even purposely, not even unknowingly, purposely, like, oh, there's a crawl coming up, that's an excuse to go ahead and upgrade this, that, or the other.
I think we do it because it gives us a reason. Like, there's a reason to get stuff done. There's a reason to implement things. There's a reason to take things off the back burner and put them into the forefront. Like, it gives us a reason. So
a little motivation to fix that last little thing that was kind of on the edge of your mind.
Yeah. Yeah. And almost always the crawls come and then you realize something that was wrong with your room for a long time.
One of my favorites this time, did you hear Sheldon talk about in the last
the rattle?
No, in one of the crawls, he had turned off his amps to give him
yeah, and he didn't turn it back on.
18s, like the calling card for his theater, 16 18s. They weren't even on for like half the demo sessions until he realized that they weren't on.
Oh man!
And that's the other funny thing about that makes it so funny, is that he has so many other subs in the room besides like the 24 that's near field and the 12s in every seat and the 12s underneath every seat, that no one even noticed or said anything. Like 16 18s aren't engaged and your audience doesn't even know there's a problem. That's so funny to me. Like, he said nobody even like said there was, like, he was like, oh, my subs aren't even on, and people were like, huh?
Well, I told you that the people that thought the amp exploded, they thought it was an immersive addition. They thought it was part of the track, that it was some gunshot coming from off, like out of the theater to add ambiance or something. I don't know. But
Yeah.
thinking about Sheldon's 16s, I'm just thinking back to where these theaters were 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, it's been a total transformation even from 5 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, Sheldon and I have both had 818 since 2014, so it's not like we haven't had any, but Sheldon, we just kind of like keep creeping up, if you will.
Yes. Yes. We'd probably all be driving exotic cars and stuff if we weren't involved in this.
That's funny.
All right. Enough on
We
that
should go back
one.
to comments because we didn't get
Yes.
caught up here. So I don't even know how to answer this. You might. For integrating whole home audio in lieu of Sonos or Hios, what would you suggest?
That's kind of a subjective question. The Sonos and Hios are nice because you have independent control over every room. You could do Blue Sound, which is what I would actually recommend to do the same thing. The nice thing is you can tie everything together, so you're playing the same content from every room, where you can play them independently. You have full control, and you don't have to worry about routing. It's a lot easier. You just home run everything back to the amps. They can be at different rooms. They don't all have to home run back to the same location. If you don't want to go that route, you would home run everything back and do some type of switching, whether that be a multi-channel amp that allows you to switch channels on and off, or you're just using a switching box that allows you to turn channels on and off. There's a few ways to do it, but my recommendation is the way that you're describing, just because it gives you more granular control at the end of the day. So that's what I would do. Sonos, Hios, or Blue Sound. There's some other companies that do it too, but it's a little more expensive, but I think in the long run it pays it's worth it.
You know how I do whole home audio?
Just turn your theater up really loud.
That's part of it. So I have, this is going to be silly, and it is, I'm meaning it to be silly, but I have Alexa echoes in every room, pretty much. Maybe not every room, like not in bathrooms, but most rooms. You can have a sync feature to them where they listen to each other and get the time alignment correct.
Oh, that's cool.
And then you have the home theater. This is all seriousness. You have the home theater be the main one that everything else listens to catches. And so if the home theater is playing in the basement, it has bass that is enough to kind of fill up the house. And then the little echo dots in every room are like the little bit of like ambience in every room. And it actually works better than it should for those little cheap $20 devices. Like surprisingly good. And it's all synchronized. So my whole home audio is with echo dots in my home theater. I mean, that's really silly compared to what we're talking about here, but it's functional and it's inexpensive. Are you banning Sania?
Can you? It keeps telling me that
Block
something went
user.
wrong.
Yep.
Reload.
Hi, Sania.
Did it do it for you?
I just did it.
I know.
It didn't take it off, did it? Something went wrong, it said.
That's what mine said.
This is a family show, Sania. If you're joking around,
I think it's a troll.
We don't do that.
Anyway, yeah, Revibe. I do sell Blue Sound. I sell all three of those. If you have any questions or just need a recommendation, if you have a dealer already, just shoot me a message on the ascendav.net website. You can send me a message down there in the contact field. That's the easiest way. But that's how I would do that.
Okay, so some of these might say my name because you weren't on quite yet when these came in, but we can both speak to this. If you can't match your left, center, right to surrounds, what aspects of the speakers are most important to try and match?
All of them. I mean, how far are we going to take this?
I think at minimum you probably want to get matching tweeters, in my opinion, if you can.
Yes, and then matching sensitivities, I think would be helpful.
Well, as long as you have capability and headroom.
Yeah, but usually that comes with sensitivity. I mean, you don't typically see a speaker that has a ton of headroom with low sensitivity. Typically.
Well, I was just thinking in your room you have like 115 dB main sensitive speakers and
okay, yeah. But the ones that aren't 117.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking 100. like a 82 dB sensitive speaker
Yeah,
with a
yeah.
95 dB
I wouldn't
sensitive.
say you match them exactly. You just want a high sensitivity speaker with a high sensitivity speaker, but you're gonna get that if you're matching the tweeters a lot of times.
I
Um,
I think
I think
I
the
might
tweeters.
word the question a little bit different than that, Paul. I think I would say, like, in my and this is subjective preference, this is the answer you're getting, is that I beyond matching, you want reference capable. That's my opinion because you have a lot of people. I'll tell a story that we told on one of the other streams here recently with all the hosts. There was a lady that came through our crawl, and her husband said that she doesn't like music over -40 dB volume. And I thought, oh man, because I was kind of asking like to introduce, like,
I haven't
are
heard
you
this.
are you guys comfortable with loud volumes? Does anyone have any problem with this? Kind of give me any feedback if somebody doesn't want loud, because I said I will play at movie theater volume, like commercial premium movie theater volumes. That's what I do, THX reference. And the husband kind of spoke up and said, my wife doesn't really like anything over -40. And I said, I I don't mean to like cause an issue here, but we're not going to play this at -40. That's not what everyone else is here for. So I said, if you would like to listen at -40, then you'll probably need to go upstairs. I can, or you can come in this back area by
I
my
thought you
table.
go upstairs so that you could listen to it through the floor. Is that what you meant?
That'd probably be louder than -40. So, I mean, I wasn't mean about it or anything. I just said you could
Oh.
also come back and sit by this table with me because you'll be out of the sound field. It won't be as loud. Like that table that's kind of in the back of my
Mhm,
room. And I said, we're planning to go to reference at least for part of this. Like I'm not going to make any apology. That's what we're going to do. So if you feel uncomfortable, like even if you're listening and it gets too loud, just feel free to walk back out of here. That's fine. That's what everyone else is here to hear. They want to hear THX reference. That's what we're going to do.
mhm.
So at like during the waves where we're switching people's seats, this lady goes and sits in the main listening seat after she's kind of already said, like, like her husband said, she doesn't like anything over -40. I had it at reference. I didn't change my performance at all. Like my intended playlist, I played it like it was going to play. She sat there the entire time and didn't move. Like, and so I was just thinking that there's the reference capable speaker ploy that we're always talking about. Like
Mhm.
if she doesn't like -40 in a lot of rooms and she could tolerate like true reference without like running for the hills, like reference capable speakers are part of that. They just are. Um,
I agree. I had one of those in the demo today.
mhm,
One of the gentlemen that the main demo E brought with him said that he was sensitive to loud. I didn't go quite to reference,
mhm,
but we were 3 dB under reference
mhm,
and sat there the whole time, no complaints, said it was awesome, and
mhm,
I think a big part is, like you say, not being reference capable. You're distorting.
mhm.
They're not able to do what you're asking of them, and what you're actually hearing is not loudness, it's distortion.
And it's not pleasant to our ears, like
No.
nails on a chalkboard. And so you think you
Yes.
don't like it.
Yep.
And when it's super clean and clear, like you've had this experience in your room, you've talked about it, and I agree with you. You turn that thing up and up and up, and it just sounds good. And pretty soon, it's not healthy because it
Mhm.
sounds so good. Like it just
Yep.
keeps getting better as you turn it
You
up.
very easily get there with an Apple TV remote that gets stuck. Takes it there for you.
Oh, that was obnoxious
Mm.
for sure.
Yep. My
Okay,
I'll never forget
so
that in my
matching
ears.
tweeters. I'm not sure the woofer is going to matter as much as long as your
Mm.
capabilities there. It can,
Not with good subs.
yeah, yeah. Your crossover point does matter. I'm not going to say it doesn't matter. As long as you can keep it close, it's better than very discrepant. Like please don't install speakers that are like 150 crossover on the ceiling and you're trying to run 40 crossover speakers on your left, center, right. Like that kind of stuff is bad ideas. Um, same line is probably okay in most cases.
What do you think about dispersion?
Well, you and I are going to have different opinions on that to some degree, and that's okay. I like a wide dispersion speaker.
No, I'm saying, should it match your LCRs? Like, should it be the same all the way around or close to it?
Doesn't have to. I don't think it has to. Because like a JTR 212 HTR, I like that speaker a lot, and that's a narrow dispersion speaker. So if I
Yeah.
had that as my LCR, I wouldn't be sad. Like those are
You don't
nice.
think so?
I like those.
Well, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying, should the LCR match your surround in
I don't
dispersion?
think that's
No?
necessary for 100%. No, in fact, there might. I could see an argument being made that you would keep some of the overspray off your sidewalls and stuff with your left, center, right, where you would have to use like potentially less acoustic treatments and so forth with that kind of narrow dispersion speaker. I mean, that's kind of one of the advantages of it.
Yes, but
Like
then you're
very specifically to put a point on this, when I was in my previous room to this one, like 2013 and before, I didn't have very much acoustic treatments. I had a tile floor, I had a drywall ceiling, and it was kind of a small room. And the JTR helped keep some of that extra broad, the broader frequency response dispersion off the walls because they were very narrow. It was like a 60-degree dispersion on those 228 HTs I had. So like they did a better job in my room by not having as much problem interacting with the room since they were narrow
it
dispersion.
fixed an issue or allowed you to get around an issue. But on the
Yeah.
opposite side of that, having a wide dispersion speaker that has the same kind of sound power, I guess we'll call it,
Mhm.
uh, on axis as it does off axis, you can
Mhm.
widen your soundstage if the room is set up
Mhm.
correctly. So
Agreed.
I think you've just got to. I think the only way to it is you got to do what your room wants. You got to play and use what works well in the room. Don't build
Mhm.
the room to the speaker. Get the speaker for the room.
Mhm.
So in your case, like you said, you narrow dispersion speaker helped you with lesser acoustic panels, but if it's well treated, a wide dispersion speaker may work better because it'll widen your soundstage.
Or even in when I brought those 228s over here and there was a wider room, even without all the treatments, they sounded a little bit like I
Small.
wanted a little bit broader dispersion. Yeah. So like yes. I I don't know. I think that's can be some subjective argument in that particular
Yeah,
category between LCR and surrounds.
that's fair.
Okay.
Tweeter for sure.
If a sub has been optimized by the manufacturer through DSP, is Dirac further pushing that optimization on the extreme low or high end, asking for distortion? Absolutely. Any of those auto EQs can do that unless you tailor it and say, don't EQ below this frequency response, which I think doesn't Storm and Turnoff have some functionality like that? You can say,
Yeah,
like, don't
you can
tailor below
curtain.
this frequency.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a problem. Ryan, with any of the auto EQ programs.
Yeah, that can be a really bad problem. And it can also be a really bad problem with auto EQ cutting off a lot of your low end frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So you could lose out on everything below, say, 30 hertz. Like we had that problem in the Experience Center where if you put the infrasonics in with the kick subs and presented them to Dirac, we were down 25 dB from 25 to 12. It just fell off like a rock.
Mm-hmm.
And but if you put them into zone 2 and didn't present them, Dirac didn't try and fix wonky phase issues that it was running into with the longer wavelengths, and it allowed them to get down lower. So auto EQ is not a magic bullet. It is not going to magically and easily fix everything that's going on in your room. It's best to try and fix as many of those issues before you allow auto EQ to do the things that people can't do, like fix phase in multiple situations, get your delays really well dialed in or as close to over a multi-seat position. I mean, there's things that room EQ is much better at, and there's things that we're good at, because a flat response at every frequency is not going to be sound right. So it's my recommendation is do what you can beforehand, and then let auto EQ do its thing, and then go back and check it. It's not a magic bullet.
Jonathan has a velvet and black rug at the front of your theater. Improved your contrast, notably so, Chris. But small amounts, like we're talking these last few percent type things. But yes, I also think that black rug made me convinced that I'm glad I did it because I could now tell that I can use black carpet in here. Like first I wasn't sure if I would like black carpet. Now I can tell I would like it. So I will when I upgrade this carpet, it will be black or at least very
Ooh,
dark.
another thing that
Um,
changed.
yeah, and I'll tell you another thing. Like we were talking about this just with Astro, with the guest that was here earlier tonight, because he was asking about what I thought about the JVC 500, what I thought about the QL 3000, what my experience with the projector was, because that's the market he was kind of looking in, was thinking about a new projector. I said, this room is not black enough for that JVC NZ 500, but it is black enough for the Epson LS 12,000, the Epson QL 3000, because like the Epson LS12000 and the Epson QL3000 don't have that real deep, dark native black floor at like 40,000, 50,000 to 1 contrast ratio. It's more like 3,000 or 5,000 to 1 contrast ratio. And so any like my mouse has an LED on it, right? And when I watch movies, I run my speakers at 5% light instead of 100% light. All those things are lost to the black floor that the Epson produces. Like it doesn't show up on the screen. But with the JVC's black floor, native black floor, the tiniest LED in the room would like be visible on the screen to some degree. Maybe I'm slightly exaggeration, but not that much. So it really depends on the projector of how much you need to chase. In my experience, how much you need to chase that black floor. In any rate, I do think that rug and that velvet on the wall a little bit helps. I mean, it does help. There's no question. How much it helps is a few percentage points, I would say. Not like night and day difference. Like now I can watch it and I couldn't stand it before. It's not that.
Yeah. I agree.
Okay, so Paul says, I am at 5.1.4 full JTR system. Very nice. But my processor can do 7.1.4. But placing the rear surrounds would look bad in my living room. Am I missing out? Yes, technically you're missing out. We were talking about that a little bit earlier in the podcast. A lot of the think about anything before 2014 timeframe. There was no Dolby Atmos. Everything was at most 7.1. And that was a lot of content for the last 15 years before that or something, right? That you could have 7.1, maybe 10 years, whatever it was. There's a lot of content in there at 7.1 to 4. It folds it down into 5. It's not like you're just losing the tracks, or the channel information, but you are losing the spatial positioning information potentially. So I think you are missing something. How much you're missing?
But would you take a properly dialed in 5.1.4 system over an 7.1.4 system?
Well, why does it have to be why can't it be a properly dialed in both
maybe
ways?
they're not going to be able to implement them correct. It's going in a living room. I don't know. I'm just asking the question. Which one would you take?
I don't know how implemented bad would be. Like if you're totally off axis and it's like 16 feet beyond where it needs to be because there's no other place for it, don't do it.
Yeah. The other thing that I see this come up all the time on AVS, and that is people immediately bandwagon TVs above fireplaces, and they want to shove full home theater speaker systems into living rooms, and just rip that wall down and do this and do that. I'm like, guys, it's a living room. Like, you have to compromise at some point, because there are some of us out there where our partners are not going to allow us to turn the living room into a bat cave, right?
Same here.
Both of us.
Oh yeah.
So I have a sound bar in my living. I mean, the blades are in there, but the sound bar's in there. And was in there for a while. So
Soundbar and blades.
and blades. But the blades look good. But the point is, I would not dream of putting more than 2 speakers in there, because aesthetically it would look weird. Like, it would not. That room is not set up for that. And so with questions like this with the living room, I think you've got to draw a line somewhere, because when you're in a main living space, aesthetics do matter. Whether you want to admit it or not, a room has to feel inviting, and not just to you. It has to feel inviting for other people, because it's a main living space. So if it gets in the way too much, my answer would be don't do it, regardless of what it's going to bring to the experience. I think this is a multi-use space, and you'd be turning it more into a single-use space, and I don't think that's worth it.
Look at the voice of reason. What in the world just happened? What just happened? Are you on the right podcast tonight?
No, we have dedicated rooms, though. I mean, I don't need a home theater in every room of my house.
I agree in full. I mean, you know what I have in my room? It's like 2 little Polk speakers.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Sonos soundbar and blades, but
this is going back to Ben's comment saying, like, should we have stayed with something, the old reliable versus new and shiny? He's saying that he appreciated getting to see the new projector, even if there's a few hiccups. That's what the QL3000, I assume he's talking about. Mm-hmm. Good. He was on the crawl and had his opinion on that. So thanks for sharing that, Paul.
Good. Paul R says, have fun vacuuming that black carpet every day.
Yes, with my German Shepherd, the dog hair is gray and it shows up quite well on a black
Just got to
carpet.
get a black dog. Just spray paint Velma black.
Why is my dog? It's for the best, Megan. It's for the best. Okay, I'm sorry your head's kind of cut off. Can you raise your camera a little bit so you don't have your head half gone? There you go. A lot of these home theater tours have calibrators come out days before the tour improving things, like it was not good before. But you do
Did
that. You
any
want
of us have calibrators out the
put
days
yourself
before
in.
the tour?
Put yourself. I don't know, but put yourself in the position of any of these people. Like they're having 50 people trounce through their theater, and you want it to feel its best and look its best. I get it. I don't.
Uh-huh.
I don't fault that at all.
Uh-uh.
Whether they do it or don't, we talked about it a little bit when we had all the hosts on there. There's a certain level of stress and excitement and anxiety and all those kind of mixed emotions because you're showing something that you dearly love, that you've put a lot of blood, sweat, tear, equity into to make it its best. And you're having 50 total strangers come in and critique it, whether they verbally admit they're critiquing it. You know without a shadow of a doubt that's exactly what they're doing. Like my
What's that
system is
Pixar movie about the emotions?
yeah.
What is
I
that
know what you're
movie
talking about
called?
with the little 4-colored animated guys.
Yeah.
I can't think of it, but all those emotions are spinning around, and it's exciting and exhilarating you, and you obviously want it to be its best condition. Like that's what you're craving to do.
He says, read his next comment.
Oh,
Oh, he's not talking about us. Oh.
yeah, it'd be the same thing. I mean, their stuff's getting ready to go on the internet.
So a lot of the tours and stuff, if you're talking about who I think you're talking about, a lot of them are sponsored by integrators and companies. So yeah, they want their stuff to be showcased the best that it possibly can because they don't want any negativity surrounding it. And I think there's inside out. Thank you, Randy.
Randy's got
I
it.
think there's some stress that goes along with that. That's why I said when the theater was being built the entire time, I hope this doesn't suck because there's this level of anxiety
Mm-hmm.
because even if it's good to me, I've got to hear what other people say about it because I'm just one opinion. Maybe it's colored or subjective. So there's a lot of anxiety that goes with leading up to that, having other people into your room. I mean, now I'm confident, Jonathan, I think you are too, that we know when we bring people into our spaces that they're going to do well, unless things blow up. But even still, there's a level of anxiety. Did you have any anxiety or nerves before
Sure,
the first group?
sure. I mean, like since we've done this for 15 years at this point, not as much as when you first start, but there's always a little bit of that. There's always a little bit.
There's a little bit, and the biggest fear I think now for me, because I'm confident that the room is going to sound good, is just making sure that nothing goes wrong.
Right.
Like cables stop working or amps malfunction or
Sure.
sources decide to not play. I mean, it's invariably every time we do something like this, something doesn't work.
And I'll tell you, it even extends a little bit to an air of silliness because one of my guests, I'll call him out by name, Kevin, Salty Toes.
Kevin,
He he brought a giant white blanket because he's a cold-blooded person. He's cold all the time. So like he comes in the
I
theater
didn't
and he
know it was
has like a
white.
giant white blanket that he pulls up. He like has it with him and he pulls it up neck high and it's like all this. We try to make our theaters black and he's got a giant white blanket in there. And I was thinking like, all right, this is like just let it go. But like, why do I have black blankets over here? Can I get you a black blanket?
I didn't know. I knew he had a blanket. I didn't know it was white.
Yeah, it's white.
Kevin, Kevin.
All right, so I noticed recently there's so many movies below black level, barely able to watch it with a projector.
Have you had that problem lately?
Tone mapping can help with that if it's HDR, and if it's just a cheap little DLP, there isn't really a solution for that because some of those DLPs have like 500 to 1 contrast, and that's poopy.
Yeah. I was going to say you could put a video processor on that GP DLP, but at 500 to 1, that ain't going to fix it.
Yeah. I mean, the cheaper DLPs are like in that ballpark.
That's
maybe 1,000 to 1 for $1,000 DLP or
still gonna
2,000 to
be
1.
poopy.
Yeah. But I'll tell you, as far as that goes, sometimes just watching the HDR version of it can help a lot, especially if you got it less
SDR, you mean?
what did I say? No, SDR version.
You said HDR.
I did?
Yes.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Watching the SDR version of the movie can help instead of the HDR version. So if you have like a Apple TV or a Amazon Fire Stick, switch it to SDR only. Like, don't even allow HDR near that type of projector, and you'll be better off for it.
What kind of projector do you have, Mosin? Let us know. We'll come back to you. I like not having to drive the questions. This is nice.
Okay, so we got Randy talking about videos of hacking TPM chips, trusted platform module chips, and laptops in 15 minutes. Connecting leads to the chips directly to defeat BitLocker. Encryption can be defeated, not always brute forced. Randy, I like you, but that's crazy. Like, yes, I went to Black Hat in 2017 and I watched a presentation from the Google guys where they unencrypted an iron key data locker drive by supplying the exact same voltage that the correct password applied to the chip to release the information. This is in, yes, all that stuff's real. I mean, I'm in IT as well. All that stuff's real, but the kind of scale that the movie centers are worried about for that kind of thing that doesn't even make sense. Like, that kind of stuff is like elite of the elite hackers or the white hat hackers, if you will, in like labs where they have incredible type forensic equipment. Your average Joe bloke on the street has zero chance of doing that, and it's not a legitimate concern for movies on a disc. Like,
Were you
I'm
guys
not
talking
not
about
giving
hacking
you
movies?
an inch on that. We're talking about why Kaleidescape has like a 480 gigabyte limitation and why they don't allow user replacer drives and like giant 22 terabyte spinners, rotating drives, 5,400 RPM drives, whatever, that would be $200. Why are they putting, and you and I have had this conversation on the side, why are they putting a 480 gigabyte drive in $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 machine when you can, for a tiny bit more money, put a giant spinner drive in there?
Because then
So
how do you sell the more expensive
So then the
ones?
question is like, why don't you have user replaceable drives? Like, and then Randy suggested that it was because they wouldn't allow it because of potential for piracy, that kind of thing. So
Yeah,
this is the whole conversation in the background.
I see.
I mean, you're absolutely correct, Randy. That's totally possible. It's not just theoretical; it's possible, but it's such an elite small amount of like exposure or risk that would come from that kind of
Hmm.
situation.
There's a lot of stuff like that. Not a lot, but there's some freaky stuff out there. Like there was a hacking technique where people figured out that you could reconstruct data. Now chips have gotten a lot more sophisticated now, but a long time ago, you could reconstruct data based on the frequency that a processor modulated at. You could reconstruct the data that it was calculating,
Mm-hmm.
or you could reconstruct an image based on
That was an
how
Intel vulnerability, I think, wasn't it? The one you're talking about?
electricity was modulating in a power cable going to a monitor. You could reconstruct the data.
Oh, I hadn't
There's a
heard of that
bunch
one.
of
That's
cool
interesting.
stuff that you can do. I mean, it's more complicated than that. There's a bunch of cool stuff that you can do, but you have to be with the device, right? You can't.
And extreme laboratory grade equipment
Yes,
to
and
make
it's
it
still
happen.
not going to be perfect. You're going to be able to see what's going on potentially, but you're not going to get everything.
Yeah.
So, I think it's more about that. But
When I was at Black Hat for that convention, I heard an extremely interesting story where basically a nuclear power plant hired a hacking team to figure out what they could figure out if they could penetrate, like a penetration team, a red team, basically to figure out what they could get into the facility and cause any kind of ruckus. And they didn't give them any credentials. They didn't give them anything. And the team was supposed to simulate it, not really do it, right, and see what they could come up with. And long story short, they figured out that they could infiltrate the supply chain and basically change the RPM on the turbines that drive the water cooling processes and have a turbine that reported a different RPM so that the machines would still recognize that it was working properly, but it was causing cavitation in the water supply system, or this is the theory. And the extra bubbles from the cavitation from the propeller spinning too fast for the stream capability of the flow would cause a cooling deficiency that would eventually escalate to the point of a nuclear meltdown. And all while the systems are reading A-OK. So, like, pretty cool stuff. Like they proved it out in theory, and the company had to make changes to their supply chain configuration to make sure that kind of thing didn't happen. Like stuff you would never think of. Like, hey, my propeller says it's going at 3,400 RPM. It probably going to 3,400 RPM. Nope, that one's going at 6,000 RPM and making bubbles. So pretty cool stuff. Scrolling down. Okay, so here's Randy talking about perhaps why Kaleidescape doesn't do it. AV home theater margins have historically been high over cost wholesale. Kscape has a bad rep due to commodity equivalence. It gets compared routinely. There are more costs than just the hardware. That's fair.
Yes. Yep.
And then he's just saying, like, yeah, I think he's on the same page. He's just offering a little rebuttal. Okay, so sold on Blue Sound. Who's doing distribution for them? I'm in a hurry for a few builds. Do you sell Blue Sound, Ryan?
Yeah.
There you go. Talk to Ryan.
Revibe said he's already going to contact me.
Okay. Skip the next one in the chat. I'll let you answer that one, Ryan. Moving on. Hey, there's a little call out for you. Ascend AV.
Reese Riverson also thanks again for amazing customer service you have. I'm looking forward to the Marantz AV10 I recently ordered from you. Earlier talks from John make me feel better about it too. Well, John's selling his. He doesn't like it.
No, I'm not. I love it.
I'm just kidding. He likes it. It's sad that their prices are going up though.
Oh.
Yeah. What AV10 is going to $8,000.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's like a not quite 15% jump?
Something like that. Yeah. It's coming. Everybody's doing it now. I'm getting.
Well, they're just doing it for fun because the tariffs aren't even applied yet, right? I mean, didn't some of them get knocked down and stuff?
I don't know.
We don't even have tariffs with
Japan. I don't know. I've given up. I don't even know.
AV10's made in Japan, so what the heck?
I don't know.
Okay, so here's another one. Reese says, this conversation about reference reminds me of my mom's comment before. She said a local movie theater hurt her ears, but in my room at higher volume, she had no issues with it and the right setup. Agreed.
Yep. I agree.
For a question for you, Ryan, Kaleidescape reference.
So for someone looking at JSIL 36, for someone looking at getting into Kaleidescape for the first time, which one should you start with? I'm going to go back, and this is going to sound a little weird, but how were you when you played, if you're this age, when you played the Pokemon games? Did you have to catch all of them, or were you like okay like having onesie twosies and stuff? Because if you're the type of person that's got to have them all, and you're like, oh, it's on sale, I might as well buy the entire Star Wars catalog instead of just one movie. Or, oh, I haven't seen the latest Mission Impossible. Oh, the whole every movie's on sale. Well, might as well buy all of them. Well, at that point, yes, you can store them in the cloud. But if you store a movie on the cloud, it doesn't show up on your movie wall. And we have this innate, unconscious feeling where it's nice to look at pretty things and see collections, even if they're just digital. So I'm just telling you this based on experience, that if you're that type of person and you go in with, like, say, the E, which is an MSRP of $3,000, and it's got the 500 gig hard drive, you can only store five 4K movies, and you can download more after you delete more, which is fine for some people, a lot of people, but just depending on the type of person you are, don't know if that's going to work for you. It might, and if it does, great. If it doesn't, you're going to do something like a C with a Tera 12 or an E with a Tera 12, depending on if you need Dolby Vision or not, or a V with Tera 12. I prefer the C with projectors because they have an extra audio out for HDMI, so you can split it, and it has a native 4K instead of a 2K upscaled movie wall, and they're faster. The C is. Don't ask me why. I don't know why Kaleidescape did that, but they did. So if you're not a gotta have them all Pokemon master, E's probably fine. If you are, C and a Tera 12.
I don't think that this is a real word. I just Googled it to find out if there was like a category. I think it's probably referring to like the kick drum frequency, which is typically 70 to 90 hertz, is defined by most people. Is that what you would say?
So Ascendo defines this as non-infra. It's just easy how they define it. So Jeffrey calls my 21s kick subs because the 21s, their frequency response is not, they're not designed to get super low. Now he doesn't reinforce them when you look at the frequency response and compression measurements. He doesn't reinforce them with DSP. It's just voltage that he sends to them. So theoretically they could, but his rationale is always just let the speaker play how it wants to play instead of trying to reinforce it artificially. So he defines a kick sub as anything that's not infra is what he would refer to it as. The kick, you're right in how what you should call it, right? Where the kick drum frequency is, which is somewhere in like the 60s, right around in
A
there.
little higher. 60 would be on the low end.
So
It's
60
normally 70 to
80.
80 is what I've seen it
Okay.
defined.
So
But you're not, I mean, that's not
yeah,
that hard of the ballpark.
but you're in that. That's what you would think of, because that's where that hits a lot of times. But it depends on the person how it's defined.
I don't even know what Stitch is talking about.
I don't know either.
All right, I'm trying to find some juicy comments here. Okay, so this one I want to speak to. Chris, black carpet, black paint, cloth are one thing, but I have learned, and this is something you'll have to kind of figure out and learn for yourself, that there's a big difference. And my friend Sheldon beat me over the head with a hammer to say this over and over again. There's a big difference between black paint and black velvet.
Uh-huh.
And he's right. So the way he kind of proved it most realistically to me was just showing me the difference in the projector in his room with 30% velvet. The first 30% of the room is velvet versus mine, which
You were
is like,
kind of upset.
I was a little disappointed because, well, I've told this story before, but my NZ500, when I got it, I thought it might be defective because it looked so much different than what Sheldon's did. So I immediately, the next day, I think it was, asked Sheldon if I could come over and bring my projector with me, and we get it over there and it looks identical to his. The difference is my room isn't as great for that black level as his 30% velvet in his room, like his front 30% at velvet. And so that was eye opening. And then the other way he's kind of told me this is that, like, he took a picture of a flashlight. He does have the back of his room painted black. Like he pointed a flashlight at the back of his room, and then like with a camera, looked at the screen and took a picture of the screen. And then he put his piece of velvet on there. He's pointing the same flashlight at the velvet and look at the screen. And there's like no light on the screen, but with the black paint, it's lit up bad. Well, all that light is bouncing around the room and reflecting on the screen. So I only say this to say this: you might find that black paint and black rugs and black curtains aren't enough if you're chasing that deep OLED black with that NZ500.
I mean, they could be velvet
You
curtains.
determine what's worth it. Like, how far do you want to go?
They could be velvet curtains.
And my rebuttal, yes, my rebuttal to Sheldon is I don't particularly want an all velvet room.
Yeah.
Like, I
It
just
changes
don't.
the aesthetic.
I just don't.
That's the
Never-
balancing point, is how much are you willing to give up aesthetically to gain in performance?
Mhm. Sheldon sent me a text the other day. It's real funny. After I told him I didn't want all velvet in my room, like I don't want a velvet ceiling. I don't want it. I like the tile ceiling. I like having the grid line. It reminds me of a commercial movie theater. My subjective preference. He's like, Jonathan, I will buy the velvet. I will install it myself. Let me in your house. I will install it. I will buy it. You have to do nothing. I want to fix your theater. That's how strongly Sheldon felt about it. Because he's
That's
like,
a pretty strong
black
statement.
tiles up there, they're not dark enough for your room. He's like, they're so distracting to me. I can't even get this to show. They're to me, they're inconsequential, especially with the Epson projector. I don't even care. Like, they don't bother me. I actually kind of like them. But he wants velvet up there, and he's willing to make it happen. Does that mean when you've got so deep in this that you're willing to like pay to
Do
upgrade
other
somebody else's
people's
room?
rooms? Yeah, that's how you know we have problems.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and by the way, lest anyone think that these are like some sort of super breaming bright thing, they're rated industrial. They're industry certified ceiling tiles by Certainty, like a legitimate company that makes commercial ceiling tiles. That's what these are for. For movie theater, they're called Theater Black F. Like they are what Certainty makes for theaters. They're 3% light reflectivity. So it's not even like there's so much more absorbent than paint. Like if you look at the grid line reflection from black paint, the blackest paint I can find at Best Buy, or sorry, Home Depot.
Best Buy.
Yeah. Home Depot, like the blackest, mattest paint I can find. These things reflect so much less light than that, but it's still way more than velvet. And honestly, it is. It's just way more than velvet. Okay, enough of that. We all need a little bit of validation no matter how long we've been doing this. Why do you think we all love demos for friends, family, and prospective customers? Yeah.
That's true. That is true. We all like a little positive reinforcement.
Yes, Paul bought me a black robe and brought it over to the
Really?
for the crawl. Yes, so I could distribute it to someone who was happened to wear white.
We should create a clan, and our uniform should be black robes.
The hooded home theater clown.
Okay,
Oh,
no,
wow. That's getting dangerous.
yeah, don't take it that far. We just may be one color off of something that means a little bit different. Maybe don't do that. Never mind.
Oh, so what have you watched lately? This is the topic that Tim's
What have
at.
I watched lately?
Watched since last podcast? Anything?
I watched War for Planet of the Apes. I watched. Did we talk about Longlegs?
Yes, you did on the last podcast, but
Okay,
I wasn't on. I just listened
So I
to it.
watched Longlegs. Warfare before that. I watched something else recently. What else did I watch? I don't remember. Must have not been very memorable. It was something.
You really liked Warfare. You said it was the most realistic gunshots you'd ever heard in a movie.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I really liked it. It was good.
You liked Daddy Longlegs. You said it was unique and worth watching, although a little
Long
weird.
legs, not Daddy Long Legs. It's just making the title weird. That makes the whole premise of the movie a little weirder, but whatever. Yeah, and then War for Planet of the Apes. It's okay.
I
What about
watched
you?
Jurassic Park with the QL3000, and it was fantastic.
Why was it so good?
First off, that movie is fantastic.
Well,
Like,
yes.
it's better than I remember.
Oh, it's so good.
I'm not someone that watches movies over and over again. I rarely watch a movie twice unless I am watching it with a friend or something. Like, I just don't. But my kids hadn't seen Jurassic Park, and only one of them even had the courage to watch it because the others were scaredy cats. But my 13-year-old watched it with me, and we both thought it was excellent. Like,
It's really good.
excellent. It holds up so well. It's the sound is awesome. The score is awesome. With the QL3000 and 375 nits, it's awesome. Like the sun looks like super bright, and that was a plus cinematic experience.
And it's so much different than the other Jurassic Parks because it's a borderline horror movie. Like it is actually how they implemented the dinosaurs and the raptors and the T-Rex. It's much more scary than the other ones.
I think they went downhill every version of it. Like they
Jurassic World is fun. I wouldn't say it's a good movie, but it's fun. Jurassic Park is on a level all of its own, though.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the movie in my mind's eye when I was 14 or whatever it was when it came out. I don't know. No, I would have been 12 because when it came out in the theaters, now I'm talking about this, I remember. My parents wouldn't let me go see it, even though I loved the book by Michael Crichton because I wasn't 13. It was a PG-13 movie. I was 12. So I had to wait and watch it when I was 13. But I loved it then. I thought the book was better. I haven't read the book long enough. It's been so long that I probably don't have that fresh in my memory, but I like the movie more now at 45 years old than I did when I was 13.
That's fair. I'd probably like it more now, too. It's really good. Really good. My daughter's ready for the next one.
I watched Jaws in 4K HDR, and that was fantastic, too. A little Spielberg kick, I guess.
Evidently. What else? What else did I watch?
Jaws was fantastic. That was a great movie. My same daughter watched that with me, and we loved it. We both loved it. I don't think it's as good as Jurassic Park, but it's still
No.
very good.
No. Okay.
Ben says there's a frequency in a Janet Jackson song, Rhythm Nation, that hits the resonance frequency of 5,400 RPM hard drives. Microsoft had to build in the first audio filter to prevent that frequency. Ah. So it would cause the drive to skip or something, I suppose, if you were listening to it.
I don't know what that would do to the drive. Maybe it causes the drive to resonate, and then it can mess up the platters.
Oh boy. You all do a video on the actual room construction. You have great video, or good pictures anyway, and so does Chirpy on this process on his thread. If you go to AVS forum, there's so much wealth of information on there in the dedicated room threads where people put like every iota on the stepping path there. As far as a video, do you have materials to do that, Ryan?
I don't have a video. No.
Yeah. I think Chirpy does. I think you could probably go, and he's got a really neat story to tell on his home theater that he built. You could probably look up CHIRPIE on AVS forum and look at his build through it. It's called Midwest Cinema 2.0, I think is his thread title. And it's a fantastic read. Okay, so we're almost caught up on questions. We got a couple more and then it just must have updated because now it just scrolled way down. Okay.
Fail.
Scrolling down. What? That must be where Adorama gets their things. Fall off the boat.
I mean, 3,000 isn't outrageous for a used one, though. That doesn't sound too otherworldly.
All right, Tim. Tim's joining Carp's bandwagon. He's saying, "Look what's happening with your room light. I got blue lights on, and the walls
but part
look
of that's
blue,
going to
but
be
the
the
black
camera.
still looks black.
Part of that's going to be the camera. The camera is going to expose different. Yeah, I know you can see it with your eye, but part of that's the camera.
I mean, the point is made. Even the black carpet looks blue.
I mean, the point is, Jonathan, that you're wrong, and you need to put velvet up.
Look, there's velvet on the front wall. Underneath I mean, it's black. I can't argue with it. It's black. But do you like the look? Do you want your home theater to be covered in velvet? That's your cross to bear, I guess.
I wouldn't.
I don't think I do either.
No.
You need to use a carbon lattice paint like black 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 to see the full capability of JVC when it comes to black floor. I've been tempted to do a demo room in it. Is that stuff that's supposed to be like it's $40 for a fingernail container full? That's supposed to be like invisible paint because it's so black you can't see it. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's like an invisible black paint that like makes it so you can't even see the item.
I don't think it's worth it. And here's why. People don't want to admit this, and some people can get around it. I can't. And Jonathan, I don't think you can either. My wife certainly can't. I don't think your wife can either. If a room is not aesthetically pleasing, you are subjectively or subconsciously going to use it less. Not subjectively was the wrong word. Subconsciously going to use the room less. It's just like if the room is complicated to control, you will use it subconsciously less, and others will use it less. You have to find a way to make form meet function. If you only go through function, the room is not going to be inviting. You're not going to want to hang out in there. My room is straddling that line. Like, I know that. It's straddling that line because it's very dark. That's why the couch is not black. Because if I put a black couch in there, it loses that feeling of an invitation to go sit. Having a lighter couch, though it is not as aesthetic, it's not as matching with the room, it's not as functioning because it reflects, it beckons you to go sit. It provides a focal point, the center of the room, that's where you sit, and then everything else is dark around you. If you velvet everything, and make everything black, it is not inviting. And we as people do not, by nature, like being in those spaces, right? We want to be out in the sun. Whether you want to admit it or not, that's where people typically want to be. So putting you in a black hole in the basement, though some of us like it, I like being in the dark, it is not an inviting place. So I wouldn't do it, but that's personal preference.
And I've kind of, I mean, I've experienced a full velvet room. Like I was there's a guy named Kansas City named Bill who has his whole room is black velvet, front end 100% velvet. That's not for me. I mean, I understand the appeal to it. I get why he wanted to do it, but it's not for me. That's not to say he did anything wrong. That's what he wanted.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not saying that people don't want to use rooms like that, just how the majority of people are. Anyway.
Okay, scrolling down. He's just mentioning the best velvet is supposedly Fidelio. I can't speak to that one. I think the best one at Joann's was called Triple Black, and the best one at Hobby Lobby is called Royalty or something like that. Or
I thought
I
Triple
might have them
Black was
reversed.
at
I might have them
Hobby
reversed.
Lobby. Yeah, Triple Black's at Hobby Lobby.
But there are differences in them.
There is a difference. Yes.
I recently bought like 4 different type of black velvet curtains, and they're all different. And we went
Guess
into
what?
Hobby Lobby.
There's an AVS thread on that.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
The blacker the image, the better. The blacker the theater, the better the image. I think is the name of that one.
Yep. And they
So
compare
people in there are comparing like, here's the best carpet to buy, which is why I bought this one because it has like the least reflectivity. According people buy 5 carpets and they return 4 of them and keep 1, and then that's how that all goes. So I did the same thing with curtains. I bought 4 different kinds of curtains and I kept the blackest ones.
What is wrong with us?
Some of them are not as black. I mean, they're just not.
I know, but
one of them looked like it had like tire stripe striations, which is kind of cool, but not really the look I was going for along the velvet.
I just try and think about what the things that I do sound like to the people that are not engrossed in this hobby.
Right.
Yeah, I bought 5 different kinds of carpet to figure out which one was the blackest. Then I returned the other ones. Isn't that a lot of work? It's like the things we do to find the things that we want are just outrageous.
Right.
We conquer a mountain for everything that we want to do.
So the chat's talking about the different types of paint and 99% absorption and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to kind of skip some of that because that's would esoteric be the right word for that potentially?
I don't know what the
Carp's in here listening. Jonathan, you didn't even respond to my offer. I laughed on my side. That's some's response. However, you got it wrong. I offered to buy ProStar self-adhesive that's as dark as velvet and put it on all your grids. My offer still stands. Sorry, Sheldon. Your offer was kind. I
not kind enough to get you to respond to it.
I love
you, friends you are, Jonathan. Some friends you are.
I also watched Jaws on 4K disc, much better than my VHS stuff. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, may.
All right, here's a question on Kaleidescape.
So John Mikado asks, with Kaleidescape Strato V and Terra Prime servers, does the Kaleidescape use the storage in the Strato V in addition to the Terra Prime storage, or is it just Terra Prime storage? It will not use its onboard storage. It'll just use the Terra. It just becomes a player. Which is why I think if you don't need Dolby Vision and you're going to buy a player in a Terra, get the C.
Superfly asks, how are the new 18, the UM18 version 2 versus the old UM18 that are like 10 years old? Actually, I was just telling this to some of the guys. I actually think I like the old ones better for my use case. And I say that because the new ones they're more sensitive above about 40 hertz. You get about an extra 3 or 4 dB above about 40 hertz, and below they're exact same. I unfortunately positioned those kind of in the wrong place for that, because if there's anything that I want to cut out from the near field, it's the higher frequencies by subjective personal preference. And so I didn't know how noticeable that would be. It's not even a deal breaker. I'm not changing anything because of it, but I personally don't want any more high frequencies coming out of my near field. Like, I approve of having less high frequencies coming out of my near field. So in that context, I like the old ones better
Why don't you just
for
put a
that
filter
purpose
on them?
because they're different dang sizes. So why didn't I put a filter on? I thought we were just talking about why don't I switch the drivers because that's the most common thing.
No.
They're different sizes. They don't fit in the other
Yeah.
like the new drivers don't fit in my old boxes. I could put a filter on, but I just have the exact same filter on all my subs. Like there's just a shelf filter and that's it. It's so simple. I could put a filter on it.
It's not hard to put a bell filter on and then just
Sure. I
make
mean,
it
it's like
super
a couple
wide and
clicks, but I just
yeah,
haven't done it and I haven't messed with it.
yeah.
And it's not even that. I mean, it may even be in my head, man. I know from much experience that I don't like the higher frequencies. Like I don't like them. For that for the subs.
See, Jonathan, when you
So
go to his house, his whole theater experience is 40 hertz and under. He plays nothing above 40
that's
hertz.
not
It's
true.
just
I don't elevate the higher things. I don't like okay, so very specifically like mid bass modules that were all the rave for a while. I never liked them, and some of the subs where they concentrate on the kick drum frequencies, like they intentionally elevate those frequencies. I don't
yeah,
like that.
no,
I don't like that. Some people crave it.
no.
Some people love it and seek it out. I don't. So it if somebody swapped those subs out and had me like switch them, would I be able to tell the difference? I think so, but I haven't been tested, and it'd be like 3 dB difference, which wouldn't. I mean, that's not the end of the world. It doesn't matter. They're a better sub. They're a better driver probably than the old ones because they're a little bit more efficient. You're losing nothing down below, and you're gaining something up high frequencies. But for my particular purposes, I don't need that.
Interesting. Good answer.
Okay, so what's the context to this one?
MW's been giving me crap about the blades the entire time. He was the one that asked if he should use blades
Forced
for
rounds.
surrounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The reason the blades are in the living room is because as a dealer, I try to support my vendors and I want to show what they have, and the blades are super cool. And I just started with Kef not too long ago. In my living room, kind of the blades fit really well in there. They don't. A traditional box speaker doesn't look great in that room. The blades don't look necessarily like a traditional speaker. They're for a speaker kind of pretty, and they go really well. And I think they sound really pretty good in that room. So it's I don't really have a good answer for why they're there. I don't even really have a good answer for why I bought them. It was just they're there. So he was serious about four blades. I mean, I wouldn't do that. I don't think that's worth it at all.
They're not really the right design for that either, right? Because isn't there design with the side?
Let me put it this way. Kef is a great brand, right? I like what they do. They're a very objective brand. They're very science driven. Their speaker is not designed for reference. It it's not what they made that speaker to do. That UniQ driver cannot do it. It'll go. So if you're doing that, don't do that. Get a speaker that works well for your use case and that works well in your room. If those speakers do really well for your use case, you're not going for reference. Yeah, the blades are really good. Their frequency response is ridiculous. They're handmade by the same guy in England. I mean, they're an amazing speaker. The box. Have I told you about the box? It's the guy that designed this box that the speakers come in spent more time designing the box than I swear some manufacturers do on speakers. The box, you don't even lift the speaker up. The box just explodes off of it. And then you just pull the speaker out. It was each one of those speakers weighs 150 pounds. And I did it by myself and I never had to pick the speaker up. It was amazing. Amazing. My only complaint for the entire thing was for the feet and stuff that they give you, which this was the first speaker I've ever seen do this. You can adjust the feet using a hex tool from the top. So you
That's
put it in the
nice.
top and then you can adjust from the top up and down, which was
That's real nice.
the thought that went into this was just outstanding. So, but they're not a reference speaker. So just get something that'll fit to your use case. Anyway,
I
I'll get
think
off.
we should start winding this down because we're at 11 p.m. and I got church in the morning, which I'm doing sound duty pretty early. What do we? How? I guess we started at 8. That's why I was thinking, like,
That's
what the heck?
been going for 4 hours. All right, no more questions.
Well, there's an interesting one at the end there.
Well, I
And then
meant,
we'll
like,
just
we're
call it.
not taking any other
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
questions. Just go with what we got, and we'll go through these.
So look at the bottom question there from Benson. Do
Haterade?
AVRs degrade over time?
Oh,
Not in any reasonable. I mean, not in any short time. They shouldn't. The capacitors should last 10 to 12 years. Circuit boards could last a lot longer. Like, you shouldn't have any kind of outage in 1 year. That's for sure. You from -50 to -40, it could just be him getting used to the sound, right?
or his hearing's deteriorating.
Yeah. Or if you've rerun auto EQ, there could be some variance there. There could be -50 to -40. 10 dB is supposed to be a subjective doubling
10
of
dB
volume.
is it's a
At those
lot.
volumes, it's not that much consequence. If you're going from -10 to -0 or to 0, that's a lot different than -50 to
Yeah,
-40.
50 to 40, you're gonna notice, but it's not gonna be in your face.
Mhm.
Uh, I
I
don't think you should be seeing any degradation as long as the AVR's in a
Not in a year, certainly.
no, absolutely not.
Unless it's like 15 years and now it's 16 years old.
I mean,
It's it's a very older receiver to start with.
theoretically, you shouldn't have any. Sure, you're heating up and cooling down and heating up and cooling down, but 10 dB, that's a lot of power difference. Granted, it's
Yeah, but at those volumes, it's
parts of a watt.
way.
Yeah.
It's a fraction of a watt. A
Yeah.
fraction of a watt.
My answer to that, Benson, is no, you shouldn't.
Yeah. Actually, at those kind of power levels, you probably shouldn't notice any degradation for like 30, 40 years, probably, because you're not asking anything of it. I mean, that's such a small, minute amount of power compared to what it's capable of.
I think something else is going on.
Yeah. What do you say we call it a night, man? I know you haven't been on here as long, but I have.
Were there any other questions?
I don't know. I'm in the music section right now.
Oh, so I don't know where you are.
On the left hand side, I was gonna click the little some sort of like lo-fi chill to fade us out.
Hold on. I'm checking to see if there's anything else. Stitch asked if Kaleidescape prices are going to go up. Yes, they are going up on the 9th of June. So Monday, they go up. Degrade over time.
Blackjack asked, "What kind of house curve am I running at church?" Nothing, Blackjack, because the little old ladies at church get real complainy like if you start running too much kick drum. You have to keep that stuff all in check.
Superfly asked, when is Haterade coming? I think he's coming in September, maybe October. He'll be out here to do the room. At least that's the plan for now. How hot are your subs right now?
Mine?
Mm-hmm.
I usually run on 12 to 15 dB hot. 9 to 15, I'll say that's probably more accurate, depending on the content.
Yeah, mine's 8 to 9, I think, is where I'm at right now. I think that's it. I don't see any other ones. I went back to where I was seeing you answer questions and pull them, and I don't see anything extra. So I think we're good.
All right, excellent.
Well, thanks for manning the ship while I wasn't here at vet duty with a peeing dog. That's the worst thing in the world to wake up to is a dog peeing.
No, there might be worse. I used to have a little red or orange tabby cat that would vomit inside my dress shoes. So I would be ready for work. I would be all have my clothes on, ready to put on my dress shoes, and I'd put it into vomit. That's the worst.
Okay, that's worse. That's worse. You got me beat. Okay, so what's our topic for next week? You had
I'll
one.
text it to you so we can write it up, but it's that one about like the top 3 things in home theater. What are our top 3 things?
Okay.
I'll be curious if we come back with the same. We
Do you
might.
think we will?
We
We're
might.
not. We're not.
I
But
bet
we
2
might.
of the 3 might be the same.
I don't even know what I'm going to say yet, so who knows? Who knows? Okay. Well, Jonathan, have a good night. Chat, have a good night. This has been your stream, Jonathan. So why don't you send us off?
So long and farewell. Wait, I got just the thing right here. Let me find it.
You gonna dance?
No.
No.
Play. What
Now
is
you're
this?
muted.
It says lo-fi.
What does lo-fi even mean?
I didn't expect this.
No. I expected kind of like static Western music for some reason.
All right, here's cinematic. What about that one? Maybe that'd be a better send off.
That's the same thing.
No, it switched. It took a second.
I feel like I'm going into Tron.
Hey, do we have a movie that we should watch for next week?
You should watch Warfare.
Okay.
Do you have access to it?
Yes.
Watch Warfare. I think it's different enough that I think it'll be good. I want to hear your thoughts on it because it's not a heavy action movie. There's action scenes, but it's not heavy action. I want to know what you think about the gunfights.
Yeah.
So Warfare, we'll talk about the top 3 things for building a home theater and probably some other shenanigans. Thanks for the music and whatever this cinematic. I feel like this sounds like Perfect Dark.
This is a really bad. It's like a really cheesy '80s.
Yeah, but this feels like Perfect Dark to me from the N64. I don't know why. But anyway, guys, stay safe out there. We'll see you next week, Friday or Saturday. Watch Warfare, and we'll see you guys soon.